Okay, this being 6:30, calling the meeting of the Westminster Select Board for Wednesday, December 8th, 2021 to order. Any adjustments to the agenda?
I do not have any.
Else? I have to ask, how long does Fact TV keep the video history of our meetings?
Oh, they're on there for, I haven't actually gone back and looked, but they're on there for quite a while.
Years.
Yeah. 17, maybe. I found them the other day. I've been hunting for
Wow.
meetings. Yeah, they're on there for quite a while. They might be, and it could be archived. I would be a question for Alex.
The minutes.
I move we accept the minutes as written. Second.
Motion to accept the minutes as written has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes adopted for November 23rd, 2021. Thank you. Okay, communication, public comments. Seeing none, moving on to unfinished business, financial year to date discussion. Darlene Kelly. Hi, Darlene.
Hello.
How are you?
So good, thank you. How are you tonight?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. So I gave you a little quick synopsis in your email of your budget to actual. Right now, you're looking at your revenues. You have collected some delinquent taxes that are bumping up your budget to actual on revenue collection of taxes. But you are still showing that you have $223,000 in delinquent taxes outstanding to be collected.
Was that number 600 and something not long ago? Or am I making that up?
And when it first came
A
about,
while.
yes, yes.
Oh, that's right.
And then we've had tax sales since then, and so.
Some of your general fund expenditures that are over budget, I noted, other than these line items, you have, you're on target right now, your budget to actuals. So these are some of the line items that I noticed when looking at your report were over budget. So just thought I'd bring them to your attention. Fluoride isn't yet, but it's 87% of your budget. I don't know what when Chuck's gonna use more in the spring, that could potentially be over budget.
I talked to him today. He filled all his tanks, so this will be it of need, but he will fill at the end of the year to utilize that the balance. So he's sitting in great shape.
So your balance sheet has cash of $1,365,000 and change there. To get you through till your next tax installment in February. So that looks okay to me. And then I thought the big discussion that we should talk about is the storm. And what's your plan for paying for that going forward before the end of the fiscal year, and what that might look like. This is what's been booked so far of actual third-party vendors, people outside the town that have done work. That's how much you've spent, $795,822.
So on the back of this document, I broke it down a little bit further for you. That was in your packet.
Got it.
So this is what we have spent and allocated with the and approved, you folks have approved. I'm sorry, I'm trying to grab one of these. Jason, do you have one?
I have one. Yep.
No, I'm asking, do you have the backside?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
You was
We
trying to
don't.
find it. They don't.
We don't.
I think the packet's there, it is, probably, right?
Oh,
Is it a
No,
separate
I
packet for the
grabbed-
meeting?
I'm sorry,
grabbed the
I
packet.
printed these out for the select board. I'm sorry. It was in the packet that I sent electronically.
You want this one?
Can I just look at it?
So it's the 150 that Darlene mentioned from the emergency capital. It was the 100 out of the working capital, which was again, part of the reserve fund policy, balance policy. And then 225,000 out of the line of credit. So
But you gotta pay that back. So it's not really revenue to the fund.
I didn't say it was revenue. I
Okay.
just said it was an avenue of payment.
Okay,
So it was $475,000 that has been approved by the select board to date for the allocation. And what hasn't been allocated or even discussed is 328,22,24. That is the amount that needs to have an answer sooner than later. And then a discussion on the line of credit and how that's going to get paid for.
That 320 is what still needs to be paid out.
It is,
Like-
it's all paid out. It's just, we paid it out of the general fund and not out of a specific
Okay.
revenue line or a cash line. So as you read her recommendations, it states at the bottom, your very last recommendation made total sense, and that's kind of where we were leading, was that highly suggest that you budget with the anticipation that you will use the majority of the prior year's fund balance to offset the storm expenses. We are still, haven't received our draft audit, but I have a letter sitting in front of me from Jordan Plummer, who is Sullivan Powers, and he's still stating that it's 340,000 plus or minus in surplus, so that would cover that spent allocation.
And we'd have about $20,000 left.
About, yes, these are very
Yeah,
rounded
no, I know.
numbers.
But when we're all done, it's like about 700,000 because we would owe the 220 back, 225 back, we would owe the 320, so it comes out to be about 700,000 that we still have to address to the voters that we took and spent money on to storm. That we haven't got that money back from FEMA.
We haven't got any money back
Right.
from FEMA yet. We spent 795,000. We utilized the funds that you would use and have been allocated to use is the 250,000. And then the 225 was your line of credit, which
But
we do have to address.
We borrowed the 225, we still owe 320, so it's about $700,000 that when we're all done, we still have to address.
$545,000.
Yes.
Yeah, 540, sorry. Yeah.
so you need to address the difference between what you have in fund balance. So in that case, you won't have any fund balance left, plus you'll be deficit spending.
How long?
The line of credit is good for 1 year, and we took it out in the middle of August. So
What are we paying for a percent? or-
1%.
1%.
So we're using, oh, that's where I was going with it. The state has a program, same thing, 1%, so I was doing this. Yep, thank you.
And when did FEMA say we could start seeing checks?
Where our first project has been completed, and it will be submitted, and that money could be allocated in the March, April range. The second project and third project that she has in her And her person right now, she is working on, she also thought that that could possibly be submitted. Should right after the first of the year, putting it possibilities of before June 30th payments. So we'd have 3 projects out of the 9 that we have,
And roughly what was that amount?
$1 million.
A million.
Excuse me, no, what did we say? Oh my God, sorry, it was 100 and
Per project.
it would it'd be about $330,000, sorry.
Total. So all the projects that would be reimbursed in this fiscal year.
That's correct, possibly, if FEMA does what they can do.
The other part of this effort, and correct me if I'm incorrect here, is to itemize those. We should have a report at some point soon as to what specifically we are itemizing to put in front of FEMA. For 2 reasons. Number one, to know that we're following exactly which particular expenditures we are asking them to cover. And also, so there's no question that when we look for the reimbursement, everyone understands that we conducted or made these repairs in good faith with the anticipation that they would be reimbursed by FEMA. Because, jump in anybody, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I'm fair to say that everything we request is very likely not to be reimbursed by FEMA.
Say that again?
I disagree.
Okay.
I left that meeting feeling pretty good.
I did too.
We submitted 100%.
Okay.
If all goes well, we're going to be left with about 12% of it.
Okay.
And so the first project it was more than 100% of what we asked for. She upped our rates, finding a different chart for our not only our wages and fringe benefits, but also our equipment. So from what we had actually expended, she actually improved it.
Okay. Let me go a little bit further. And again, I'm just trying to make sure it's on the record. Okay. At any point, though, that we feel that it's uncomfortable for us or maybe a little sketchy, that we might not be reimbursed, that we made repairs that could be considered beyond what was considered caused by the storm. Am I correct? I think I am correct.
Ineligible expenses.
Thank you. Caused by the storm, right?
Mhm.
So however, we said we made these repairs, not just in good faith, because maybe they were collateral to the storm or an extension to a damaged area that required this additional patch over or whatever you want to call it. Does this make sense?
No.
No,
What we learned was towns around us did a half-assed job, they're not gonna get reimbursed. FEMA said, no, you're not gonna get reimbursed, you did not follow Act 64. You have a state standard, we pay for the state standard. We do not pay for it to be done twice. If you didn't do it right the first time, we're not gonna reimburse you for a Band-Aid. You need to fix it and do it right. Everything we did was correct, and that's the only way we would get reimbursed.
we were very careful. Chuck was very careful not to put in work that was maintenance. It was strictly storm-related damage, and the pictures and the stories all have jived. The lengths of damage versus the product used has matched up perfectly so far. There might be in one project a small part that will be questioned, but at this point in time, it's been 100%.
I too felt very good coming out of that meeting. But I
I
just-
felt like she was more than willing to.
So FEMA doesn't pay 100%,
No.
correct?
75, and then the state pays the other.
So then FEMA, you're gonna get 75. Now you go to the next step to request money from the state, or is that done through the FEMA rep?
It's done through the same process, and we will be left with the remaining percentage
Who typically pays, the state typically pays after?
They do, they're, as you heard on
Yeah.
that, in that meeting, they wait till the end and they pay you one chunk. So that will be the last
So
piece
that
that we get.
anticipation from the state will also be this fiscal year?
No, that will be definitely in FY '23.
So you'll write a deficit of 25% on the 3 projects.
That's,
If they carry us to
that's
June
correct.
30th.
That's right.
That's correct.
Sure.
Yep.
So that's what we're, okay, that's what we're gonna run.
But
So
at the end of the day, we're gonna be way ahead of the game. As far as our roads and Act 64 and being in compliance with the state, because everything we did, we put back the way they wanted it. And a lot of the stuff we had not done yet. So it blew out sections of road that we needed to get done that were hydrologically connected segments. And they were gonna come around this year and audit us again and check all our roads, and we were gonna be behind. Now we're ahead.
We ended up better by default.
Yeah,
By
Right,
default,
correct, that's what I'm saying.
absolutely.
Yeah.
but the question is gonna be, what did we actually put in our last year's budget? So of the 795, yes, we did more than we should have, but how much does it match to what we actually put in our budget? Because that's what we're addressing.
Well, it's not more than we should have. We had to do it that.
No,
Right.
but it's still, I'm only comparing dollar for dollar. What did we put in our account? He says, well, yeah, we improved, we gained from it, but how much did we not get covered because we didn't put enough in our budget last year to cover that amount of repairs? So not being critical of what we did, I'm just trying to come back to the right dollar amount.
we didn't forecast these roads under the Better Roads grant process like we did for the other ones and put 80,000 into like Forest Road. So they'll come in and say, yeah, you guys did that, we're gonna reimburse you. I understand what Chuck's
If we
saying. I
go,
agree that
right,
we bettered it, we mitigated it to the standard we have, but FEMA's gonna look at it this way. Potentially, they're gonna give us back only so much. We're not gonna be able to make money on this, so I just
FEMA
want
told us
to.
right flat out, if we didn't do it that way, they wouldn't reimburse us at all.
No, that's right, you're right. You know, you're absolutely right. You mitigated it the right way.
Right.
So we're ahead of the game. You didn't just go in and throw down some stuff. You
No.
looked and you did it.
We asked what the rules of the game were.
But I
before we
just, I
started
hear
the
this is
plan.
coming
And
back.
that's
we're
what I
gonna make
wanted,
money.
not to interrupt you, that's what I wanted on the record,
Yeah,
looking ahead. For 2 reasons. Number one, in the unfortunate event that we may come up shorter, it's possible
Mhm.
that they make a decision that is not favorable to us. I too feel incredibly proud of everything that was done. But, and on the second point, a question as to whether or not we made repairs that were directly attributed to the storm. And I think we're all of the opinion that we did. And I just wanted on the record that we had this conversation today in December. So that way, if it comes out in March, if it comes out next July, it's on the record. So I'm not trying to be redundant. I'm trying to be careful. Is that okay with everybody?
question the voters are gonna ask.
Yeah.
was, if we end up with, let's say, $25,000, and Chuck comes up, picking on Chuck, and says, yeah, but our roads are in better shape. Next thing the voters would say, well, are we gonna save some money down the road because we would have actually asked for that money to do those repairs where they're already done?
Sure.
So it's like putting a little bit of money in the savings. Did we actually do more repairs in 1 year when we were gonna make it in 2 or 3 years? And so if we go to the voters and say, we ask you for a little more money, we're hoping that we're gonna save you some money in the next couple of years.
The answer should be yes, if we didn't have to deal with this crazy world we're in now with inflation.
Right.
What you're gonna gain by it is we're gonna be able to level fund our budget where, and we wouldn't have been able to do that in the future. We would have had to raise taxes to do all these repairs to get them up to the standard.
But I'm a little confused. Where in your budget is budget for road repairs? Where is that?
Good question. That's why I keep
I
saying.
know.
Budget
Yeah.
for road repair, what do you mean?
To
So
do work on the roads. Where is that in your budget? I don't see that anywhere.
But we
I don't
can
see
got
any
all the
progress.
gravel and stone and access.
But do you have specific
culvert.
No, I think he's
projects
talking
for-
just generally. That's what I'm interpreting. I don't think there's
Okay.
a line item for that.
There's
No,
not
no.
one, there's not a specific category and detail of roads that needs
Other
specific
than
projects
maybe
in
the only
town.
hardware was that he could have bought a culvert or two out of this year's budgets that should have been put in the next year budget. But I guess what he's saying is the sand and gravel that we use, we would have bought more of it last year where we had to buy more of it this year. Like,
The
Go
price
back
of
to
that
the
stuff's all going up,
795, that
is what I'm saying.
795, is that only the contractors that we paid? So in that 795 is none of his
There's
expenses.
none of the highway expenses that.
Your
the town
bottom line
consumes.
tells you how much we've spent.
Yeah,
No, because your wages are not in there. All that's in there is your third-party vendors. So your Cold River material, your Bucky Adams, your.
That's
all- that
$7.95.
$7.95 is just
Just,
AP
that's what I
vendor.
wanted to
Is
understand.
not your highway wages or their time or their benefits in that
So is there any
$7.95.
chances that we'll go back and get some of those expenses to help the $7.95?
Possibly.
Yes, because I was saying the bottom line of this document shows you the total amount spent. That's what we're asking for to be reimbursed, $937,000.
Because I've not been given that information. Can I have a copy of
Did I
that?
give it?
That part? Oh, sorry. Is it on here? Okay. So you're
Shoot, please.
expecting from FEMA a total of how much? $937,000?
But that, so that's
75% of that,
Right,
75% of the 937,000?
that's correct.
so,
So
and then of the remaining 25%, the state.
Pays another half of that.
So we are
We'll
good,
be in
we'll
the
be good for
12.5%.
12% of 937.
still, that's being optimistic. We'd be lucky to get the $7.95 back. We'll never get our in-house expenses back.
I don't know that. I don't know.
Well, you're just
Right
saying.
now, it's 100% compatible with what we have put out there.
But what I'm saying of this, of the 937, now you gotta take at least 15% out that it's gotta come out of our pocket.
12%, but yeah,
That basically you're gonna be down to almost back to the 7,800, the 795, which is 800,000.
So
You know,
so
it-
basically, our match would be the highway department, your road crews.
That's what I'm
and
getting
equipment.
to. That's
The
kind of what I'm getting
material and
to.
all your vendors would get covered. It's basically, I think
That's what I
at the end
think
of the
we'd be
day.
awful lucky if we did that, to be honest with you. Yes.
you should be,
Yeah, we
be
thank you.
ecstatic to get that. That'd be great.
That's why we need to be clear on this as we go. So that way it's on the record. We had this discussed and there's never a question of the fact that we discussed this real time as we went. So if something does go right, as it could, we
Sure.
don't get back everything that we are hoping for. We discussed it openly. We went over all the things that we could and we did the best we can to recover as much money as we could.
So that being said, though, what is your plan to address the money and cash flow purposes going forward? So you're addressing that you anticipate you're getting this from FEMA. You need to make that fund whole by the end of the year because you borrowed from other funds, cash, to pay out those expenses. How are you getting that back by June?
so the line of credit is not due till August. So you do have to make arrangements to either turn that into an extension or to turn it into a long-term loan. And as we said, the 320,000, you go in front of the taxpayers and ask for the surplus to cover that. So that you're only worried about is the 225 line of credit and how much that would cost us in FY '23 to either continue or to pay off.
We have to make that decision by the March meeting, because we have to address the.
It should be an article.
Right.
Yes, it should.
On it. Well, the problem with that is the article, by the time we do the end of this month, we decide January, we're gonna do an article. How much of the 320, you don't think we're gonna get any of it back from the FEMA?
You can't count on that. There's no guarantees. They said possibly, positively possible, but
It
they
sounds like
are, they
they'll
are
be
not
after
giving us a
March.
definite.
Is that true, Russ?
What's that?
It sounds like it'll be after March.
It will definitely be after
Chances
our
will be-
February 26th town meeting. Absolutely.
We have to address it at town meeting, there's no question, right? So it'll be two
Absolutely.
things, the 320 and the 225.
Absolutely.
So what are our options?
To continue your line of credit into next year, in case there is another storm, and paying still at that 1%, or turning it into a long-term payment plan. I've talked to Katie, she's willing to do either. And go to the voters and ask for the 320 to be covered by the surplus. It's being carried over from FY '21.
Is that a battle plan, Charlene?
I wouldn't want to use your whole fund balance, but if something else comes up.
I'm gonna say.
Good point.
If we deplete, there goes back to my point, you can deplete the emergency capital fund, even though that was our money. We took it out, or somebody's gonna address it, we're gonna put it back in, and while we're right there.
The policy
Not this year.
states that we don't do it through taxation, we do it through surplus. So if you have 340,000, then 20 of it would go back into the emergency fund or into the working capital.
But
And
we're
then you-
actually taking some of the money from that same source that we would actually normally put back into the capital reserve. Emergency fund, I mean, because we're gonna go to the voters and you're saying, and because you have extra money, we wanna take some of that 320. But by the way, we can't give you the 150 back because we're asking you for 320 out of it.
But by the time the payments come from FEMA, you will be updating those two numbers with that money. That's where it came from. That's where it should
So
go
we
back.
would have to go to the voters and just to reassure them that when we do get the money back, 150 is gonna go back into the.
250 will go back into the,
Those two budgets will be meanwhile, we need to take surplus to finish paying these bills.
I have a question when I can.
Please.
So kind of want to circle back a little, we were talking for clarification on what you asked. The repairs we made essentially, because we brought them up to Act 64 standards, are in excess of what the actual washouts were. Correct?
Correct.
Okay,
I was trying to make that point.
so I want to make that point.
Say that
That's
again?
okay.
that's not correct.
No,
He said
go
that
ahead.
because we brought them up to Act 64 standards, they're
Standard.
better than they were
Oh, better.
before they washed out.
But not bigger,
But
No,
that-
no, better.
okay, that's-
better.
Okay, so that's my point. We did more work as a town than what we would have probably done on the road. So if we had a little washout, he'd go out and normally fix it, but because we have Act 64 in play,
Well, no, because
You would bring-
anytime I repair or replace a road, because we adopted Act 64, I have to bring it up to Act 64 standards.
correct, all the hydraulics, all the structures,
That's
you
right.
have to bring it up to that standard. So what I'm saying is these roads had to been, that we had to bring them up as a town to meet Act 64. Let's exclude the rain event for a second. When he did that, he brought us up, but he did essentially do more work than what we would have done in a town, because if we had to fix a culvert, we don't have the grants like we use over on Forest Road. We didn't have, the $80,000. We had, Adams did a great job there doing all that stuff. Well, we didn't budget that for each of these roads, so we don't have that. So essentially, yes, to answer the question, we did more work than what we were supposed to. To answer the question, we did do that essentially because we had to bring it up to Act 64 to get reimbursement from FEMA. So we did go outside of what we would have done on these roads. You wouldn't run around and do all that work at that.
We would
Well-
have done it, but not that fast.
Exactly. my
Okay.
point.
Yeah, we were
Yeah, they-
already doing it.
We would, maybe over 2-3 years, he would come back, I just did this, got it up to actually see, I did this, got it.
We were already in
And
that,
there's
Instead, what
and
we
there's a
did-
grant program in Vermont for that we apply for. So that's what I'm
which we
saying.
do every year, right? We take
Right,
that,
correct,
and that's what we were doing. That's how Quarry Road got done. That's how
correct.
Forest Road got done. That's right.
So
That's how
to answer
Manhattan,
the
that's
question,
how-
we did really do more work, but that's okay. FEMA wants to, everyone's there. They're gonna help us because we did the.
But to go
the right
back to
thing.
her
But we did-
question, as a select board, which she's looking for an answer, and the answer would be, is we as a board would have to come up with an article to go in front of the voters, come back
So
and
can I
say,
just ask another clarify, the $100,000 working capital that you're talking about, could you explain what you are saying that is? Because I thought as a taxpayer, that $100,000 was given back to the taxpayers to reduce our taxes, so you didn't budget. So
No,
it's
that's not
basically you
correct.
put it back into the budget,
that's a different.
did
That's
it,
a different 100,000.
so
that's-
where is that
The work-
$100,000?
The working capital in the reserve, you want to do it, Susan?
No, guys, that was my question. Working capital's supposed to be in there as a matter of cash flow
Right,
before our taxes come in, so we would have money to pay. That's what.
that,
working capital
that's
is.
correct.
So where does
So-
that sit? Because I
In
don't
the
know
regular general fund.
where though, like in just a revenue new section, because that's not the $100,000 that you reduced the budget for
That's
from
correct. That's
last
not that
year.
one.
It's
So
just-
the $100,000 just gets put in there as a revenue from, it's basically moving it out of fund balance into the revenue to spend, because I'm confused by your terminology, because I see it in the budget has $100,000 in revenue that's never collected, it's budgeted, it's not collected,
That's not correct either. We don't budget for this 100,000.
it's in your budget, on your financials.
It is not.
Okay,
That is a different $100,000.
okay.
The
So-
$100,000 working capital is monies that are earmarked to cover expenses when taxes won't.
But
So,
where is that?
It's in the fund balance.
So your pool fund balance
Will
is
hold
300,
100,000.
is 300 and something. It's not 300 and 100. That is not a true statement. Your entire fund balance is $340,000. It's not 340 plus 100. You look at your financial statements in your audit, it does not separate it out. The only thing separated out in your fund balance is your recycling. There's $13,000 worth of fund balance for recycling and $340,000 worth of prior year fund balance. That's in total. That's not separated. So if you're saying it's separated, that is not what's
It's
happening on
not
your
separated.
financials.
It's part of the general fund.
So that
period.
whole general fund balance is only $340,000.
Because we spent that 100 out of it already to
No,
pay our expenses.
no, we have not touched fund balance at this point. No, that's all you have available is that 340.
Russ, according to the email from Chad, not Chad, but the
Jordan.
auditor,
Yep.
right? He said tentatively, leaving $340,000 unassigned plus $150,000 contingency fund. So is that the emergency fund?
That's correct.
That's the emergency fund. Right.
So he is saying 150 for the emergency and 340 is your fund balance. He doesn't know, nor has it been split out on your financials, that 100,000 of that is for something else. So in the auditor's eyes, and my eyes, when I look at your financials, what you have available is $340,000. So I just want to be clear, it's not 440, it's 340. So you got 340 in fund balance to use. You got $795,000. 225's got to be paid back. So when we I'm just very confused by why you're saying that, because you don't move the fund balance. Fund balance doesn't get moved between funds. So but that fund is sitting there, and that's all that's in that general fund balance.
Okay.
Please.
So when and if FEMA reimburses us before the end of the year, say $300,000, where does that go? Directly into the general fund, and when can that be allocated?
The 300, if you got $300,000, you would put and reimburse these two items that we took from. So that's 250. So you only got 50,000 that would be quote unquote surplus of that, and you would have to address that at the end of the year. But hopefully by the end of FY23, you're talking a whole lot more than that.
Right.
So you wouldn't be addressing that this year.
You'll be addressing it from the sense if we go to the voters in this year's budget, we're gonna borrow the money. So when FEMA does bring it back into next fiscal year, it doesn't go into general balance. It doesn't go into the general fund. It goes to pay back. Even though we
Yes.
borrowed it from our own general fund, it goes to pay back the
I would
borrower.
assume so.
The bank is our own general fund from this year's.
I agree.
And we don't have to put that in the budget or ask the taxpayers as we get a check from FEMA, we put it.
Goes to pay your expenses where you took it from.
I think she's right. I don't remember it because that's not an earmarked category. That 100,000 is just out of general fund. It's gotta go back to what she's saying. But I don't see a line item where we actually have 100,000. We have 150 set aside. But I don't see 100,000 anywhere other than it would come out of the general fund.
If you expensed it, saying you're transferring it to a working capital fund,
That's what I was-
that's a different situation. That's
Yeah.
earmarking fund balance being used for a specific purpose as a transfer, as you should when you have surplus in other categories. That should be moved per GASB before your audit to designate it for a certain purpose. At this point, you have not done that. from what I can tell, and if I'm, if Chad says I'm wrong, Jordan, but your financials do not reflect that you have designated that $100,000. All I see is the $100,000 that you agreed to give back to the voters. That's the only thing I see clearly stated in your budget.
Because
From
it wouldn't be a
this
line
year.
item, it would be just, you just kept taking a little money, then you take money out. We didn't actually say, take 100,000, and we as a select board voted to take 100,000 out of this general fund and move it over here and use it to pay bills.
So
We
that's-
never, as a select board, voted to do that, so I think we just took 100 and paid for it, but now you're right.
You need to physically make a transfer. You need to book a
Yeah.
transfer on your books from the general fund to a working capital fund or to an emergency fund. So then that becomes designated money that stays in that fund that cannot be used for another purpose. You didn't do that from what I can tell. So I think that that's all you got.
I can't disagree with you. I just think for where we are tonight, I think we would have to come up with a select board agree that we're gonna have to go to the voters with an article. We will come back to the meeting next time and go, what dollar amount is that gonna be? So we can be prepared to just say what the exact dollar is. But the only way we're gonna do it is to have an article.
I believe that is correct. That's how I feel that that's gonna be, and then in your budget, you need to budget for interest.
Right.
Because you're gonna pay interest on a loan, so then that's gonna be worked into your budget. And from my prior experience with FEMA, that's reimbursable, interest on the loan to use, but you gotta budget it, because you're gonna spend it. So you can't just ignore it because you might get it reimbursed. You need to show that you're gonna expense that interest. So I just keep that in mind when you wanna go through the budget tonight, that you need to add that in anticipation of borrowing, going to the taxpayers to borrow.
Now, Russ, do you have any issue with what we've just discussed?
No, I hope Jordan remembered our policy that we had done, and I hope the 340 is separate from that. He does know the policy, of course, he has it on record for us, so I'm hoping that's correct, but I'm not positive. I will ask
Is it a
him.
policy, or did you need to
It's
make
a
a
policy.
motion as a board?
It's a
to move
policy.
Money.
We did it 2 years ago. It's called our reserve fund balance policy, and it puts percentages of our working budget into it. But right now, we only had the two.
Go ahead, Sue.
I don't think that's true. I think it's the maximum is the percentage. A maximum.
That's correct. That's what he just said.
Right, which is
But
not
it's
the
not the
same as
150.
making, yeah. Well, we voted to, we asked the taxpayers, we put 150,000 into the emergency reserve fund. But my assumption was, we did it one time, and if we spend it, then we go back and ask the taxpayers for another 150 or 200 or whatever we want to put in. But that policy does not require us to always keep 15% of our budget in that reserve fund.
It does not.
Yeah, thank you.
It's up
Okay.
to, and it's
Yes.
5% for the
Yeah,
working capital.
So
But it
then-
is a policy.
But yes, I agree that's a policy, but nowhere in that does it state then $100,000. If you're saying your reserve can be a 15% of you, the unrestricted fund balance can always hold at least 15% of your total budget, never go above, how you need to make that decision at the end of a budget year to how much of your surplus are you going to move that you stick to that policy. So I don't feel, unless I'm totally wrong and didn't read your policy, the policies I've dealt with in the past for that is the board makes the decision of how much of the surplus goes and make sure that you're not over the allotted percentage of fund balance to your budget that you agreed upon.
that's right.
That's how VLCT's policy reads, so.
We have agreement here. Do we have agreement with the town manager?
Yes, yep.
Do we have agreement on this end? Definitely with you.
We're gonna come back and discuss this on, when we do the article.
Okay,
And hopefully we'll have all the
Yeah.
parties
Now-
together, we'll have all
Great.
agreement on exactly what it's gonna be.
excellent. So in your opinion, now that we have a consensus, will that cure your concern over what's happened here?
I just want to be clear too, I do not I've not been involved in the budget or the project sheets for FEMA. So I'm not clear on until tonight what this was, but I can't help project either for the end of the year.
I'm not asking you to do that. I'm saying
Okay,
our remedy that Craig came up with too, with you, to present
Right.
that in that way, based on the discussion we just had,
so are we,
is that curing a deficiency?
the process, yes, the numbers,
We got some time, we're gonna have to get.
The numbers are still floating, yes?
yes,
Okay, but we can cure it now with this remedy.
that you're going to go to the voters for long-term borrowing, is that the key?
We're gonna go to that's another part of the discussion.
Okay.
I would say we're gonna go to the voters. Let's see what that dollar is. And let's be prepared to say, we need 500,000, we can borrow, keep the line borrowing here, or do you want us to pay it all, or do you want us? I think there's a lot of little moving targets that we need to sit down. Hopefully that all these parties all agree, this is how much we're in debt for. This is the best way, and we can explain it black and white to the voters when we're sitting there, and where we're gonna be. Obviously, it's gonna be a little bit easier come March when we're a little more closer to know what FEMA is actually gonna do to us too. You know, we'll might not have the money, but at least we should have a little better feel of, it looks like we're gonna get 400 or 500 back by September or something, you know, so, yeah.
One thing that's not added in there, and I don't mean to add more mix to this, but another 5% is going to be added to that 937,310 for administrative fees. They're going to
Okay.
pay my.
Yeah, let's cobble that all together. I know everyone's busy, but let's get it all together in one memo that gives us everything.
We don't know the actual figures
I'm not
until
asking you,
she
just-
plugs it in.
Like,
It's
as
gonna
long
be
as you've got that in there
roughly
saying, hey.
Yeah.
Bullet line it, 5% is gonna come off on.
Okay,
So
Well,
we have that. in-
administrative fees are gonna accumulate throughout this process.
Absolutely.
So it's
Right.
gonna change.
up to 5%.
You know, the
Especially if you're
voters,
getting 3 out of the 9, you're looking at 3 years out probably at that rate.
Yeah.
How do we expedite that? That was my question.
Oh, but before,
Sorry,
like,
I'm
no, because like I said, let's cut each play off as it ends. That is done. Okay.
Part of it.
What's that?
The long term of that, I believe, is done. What
Yes.
is- What is your short term?
Let's close out one other issue which we were at, which was the Act 64, the mannerism by which we put everything together. As John clarified, we went beyond. That was the only thing I was addressing, that the perception is, and that's valid in the discussion with FEMA, the defining of why we may have gone beyond the scope of spending money. And our answer is, we went to Act 64 standard.
You moved Act 64
But
standards.
you didn't have a choice though. with that.
That's correct.
You do.
I just want us all on the same page.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
town that's very close to us that didn't put it back.
Right.
And
I think the other,
they're in a world of hurt right now.
can I say one thing? We were embarrassed the last 2-3 years, and it was never over, let's say it's a 795. That's a moving target. What we're embarrassed about is we don't know when we have 100, we don't know when we have 150, and we don't know when we have 225. Every year, we get embarrassed because all of a sudden, well, is that the 100,000 here? Is that the 100,000 there? And it's getting frustrated as a select board member that we don't really know what that target is. That's where I'm getting frustrated. Let's come back. And at least when we say to them, somebody get up, did you take the 100 from this year? Did you put it over here? And what, it's so confusing about this moving target. To get up in front of the voters and say, I need 795,000 because of FEMA, it might be 800, but I don't think that's hard. I think that's easy. I think everybody's gonna accept it. When we already spent 20 minutes arguing over 100,000, whether we actually did it or didn't, that's where I'm getting frustrated. Can we come back to it? And this is how much money we have and where it's going.
I agree with you, but I'm absolutely certain we will have controversy over this issue. Certain on how we may have gone beyond the scope of the money, especially if it does turn on us. So I appreciate how you put it.
and in fairness to those there, I agree with what we had to do.
Right.
But I know the question is out there, have we exceeded the scope of work past where we needed to be to mitigate the disaster? And they say, FEMA's saying this lady, that's all we have to go on. They're gonna pay it back, but again, when they write the check, we'll all be happy that we see that they do pay it all back. And the question was, is have we gone and done work outside of the storm damage?
Right,
And that's
The
a no.
roads, and that's a no. Okay, so
and we're clear on
we're
that.
clear on that. Straight from.
But we also heard that all of us that were there, and I think you were there for that meeting that day, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm actually quoting her. The nice representative that was
Yep.
here from, she said, well, this is what we need, but in the end, it's gonna end, the decision is left with that quote, her quote, Mr. Grumpy Pants, which is the person above her.
No,
That's the quote that from
that's the
her.
bean counter
Right.
up north.
That's
We
what
know
she
that.
said.
No, and I concur. You guys have a
Okay.
real good asset.
Just
there.
want to make
This-
sure
this
we're
lady.
on the record, we cover it.
Yeah, no.
I'm good on that.
I just want
Now,
to make sure we don't step outside of our recovery lanes and get into the landmines and the weeds, if you will. Let's, and I agree with everybody here. Let's get this all in one, everything. Let's see what we're looking at here. And then one thing I make a point to as we move through this, let's think about the Better Roads money, because we didn't go to them for our annual grants that were allotted as a town for this. That's a legal thing. They have to give us the money because they made a law.
right,
So maybe there's some conversation on the back end that can happen or in parallel for
so this,
what we're short on FEMA giving us back. we
right,
can-
so this is a prior, okay,
Yeah.
so I'm closing that out
Yep.
unless anyone has anything else to say about that one. We're good, we're all on the same page. Now going back to you said, which was absolutely important, which is making sure that we get this on,
When we go in that meeting, we're all in agreement that we have 100 here, 200 there, and not be embarrassed that, hey, I thought
exactly,
you had 100 over there.
right,
It does become confusing because when we move from one year, we skip that year we're in, we go over the year. That's why I was looking for that. I saw it in 2019. I know we moved another 100,000. I can't figure out where we did with that either, so. But let's just make
Down
sure.
your financials, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
right. So by us doing this, this will cure a long-term deficiency.
Yes.
Okay.
long-term, Yes, I agree with that.
Good. Any other? Okay. Doesn't address the short-term deficiency.
Correct.
Okay, but we're making progress.
Yeah, so your short term, when we first came to you about, why didn't you use your money from other funds? Your expenses were $300,000 and your other funds had cash. Now you're at 795,000 worth of cash. So let's just talk cash here. You have spent out of your budget that you didn't budget for. How are we gonna get through? Because once February hits, and all your, that's gotta get you through till next September. How are you going, because now you've taken your budget that you've asked the voters for, and now you've spent $795,000 above that. How are you gonna bridge that gap of cash?
We don't have enough cash to make it to March meeting.
You probably, what are we, December, so I don't know what other projects you have. I don't do cash flow projections for you, so I don't know if Paul knows or Russ knows. You gotta get till February to your next installment of taxes. That's wages, that's projects, that's overtime, that's snow plowing, that's salt, sand. Then from February, you gotta get till September, or you need to take a tax anticipation note.
But I'm thinking about town meeting.
Why?
Because we gotta get to town meeting to ask for the money.
Yeah, but but your money wouldn't kick in until July,
That's
whatever
true.
you ask them for. So you gotta get through
That's true.
cash wise. So you've spent $795,000 of cash out of your budget you didn't plan for. So where's that cash gonna come from?
So I don't understand that. If we spent $795,000 and we just stated that we took the 150 that was in the reserve fund balance policy and the 100,000 out of the working capital, and we have a line of credit for 225 until August. So we only are down, it's either 320 or 420, as you stated. That would be $100,000 deficit that we don't have allocated out of monies that are not in a surplus that are already in our fund.
So we're talking two different things. You're talking fund revenue stuff, I'm talking cash. physical cash at the bank.
I'm not
That's what
talking
I'm
a
talking.
fund at all.
You are, the 150 is in cash you moved. We didn't move $150,000 in cash from the emergency money. We moved the funds, we moved the revenue over to cover. We didn't take $150,000 at the bank. That's it, you don't have an emergency fund cash account. And
That's
bring it.
correct, we didn't. It's in,
Right,
it
so
was
I'm talking
in, the-
cash.
it was in the fund balance.
We're
And it was
talking two
left
different
there.
things. You're talking fund balance, I'm talking cash. So physical cash at the bank to pay your employees. That's what I'm talking.
So who
You
did
don't
the,
have
who
cash.
did the 1,365,000? Is that you? You did that?
Yeah, that's.
So
ARPA
right
mon-
now,
you
we
got
have
ARPA money in there.
1,365,000 and get until February when we get some more money. All that, you gotta pay the funds to run the town until then. Of the 795, has that all been paid or we got, so we also actually taken 795 and we still have 1.3 million. Isn't there a way of forecasting how much longer we're gonna have before we run out of money or not?
There is, I've been asked to do that and I'm not. I need more information than from Russ or Paul to give what projects are anticipated. What is the long-term planning of what you got left to do the rest of the year? So I don't know that. Those are the things I'm not been given information about. So yes, I can forecast out if that is something that.
Are
you
we to a
wanna
point
do.
where we can encumber the expenses until the end of the year? We're not close enough.
I'm comfortable with that. We've paid our bills. We've got the funds that we allocated that were in our checking account that paid for this. And that the only thing that we're really out could be $100,000. And we can cover that in the working budget.
No, but
Until
I'm talking
after
about,
Jan-
I'm talking about the
after
working
July.
budget. She's saying, well, you gotta uncover. So in other words, between now and the end of the year, we gotta buy more fuel, we gotta pay more wages. Is there a way, and when you're looking at that 1 million forecasting, what is our expenses gonna be of the 1.3 million? In what she's saying, she's right, I don't know what the forecast is. Well, how much more fuel you're gonna buy, how much more wages
Until after the first of the year, I think you're very, very comfortable.
of what we budgeted.
And then by then, we will have our audit, we'll know what our surplus is, and we'll have
But
a
that
lot more
doesn't,
answers.
that's not addressing what I'm saying. So again, the audit has nothing to do with it. Your fund balance isn't cash. Your fund balance is fund balance. I'm talking cash in the bank. Cash that you can take and write checks off of.
That
That's
one-
what I'm
The
talking
cash
about.
she needs is the right and pay him for the next week's salary, pay to go get some more salt. And that's what you keep bringing back to. It's the general funds that we put budget in there, but we actually haven't encumbered them. We haven't spent. So how much is left? That's what you normally do. You go, okay, well, I think we're gonna spend another 25,000 on fuel, you know, I mean, you kind of sit down and you do a forecast. If I'm only matching up what she's asking about the
Right,
cash.
and so like right now, your cash includes ARPA funds. You've got ARPA cash in there that you got from the feds. Okay, in that 1.3 million. Right now, you're borrowing from yourself, which is totally illegal. I've talked to Chad about this. It is normal accounting practice. You're borrowing that money from yourself in the due to do from. It's on your books. It's absolutely the right accounting method. But once you start spending that ARPA money, that ARPA fund needs that money back from the general fund. So you're gonna reverse that due to do from and say, okay, now that money's coming out of ARPA. So now that 1.3 million is going down because you're spending ARPA money. What else are you spending? So that cash is nothing to do with your fund balances. We're talking two different things. I'm talking just physical cash, where if I could go to Muskoma and withdraw all your money, I would walk away with $1.3 million in bills, which they wouldn't do, and I don't have authorization to transfer. So that's where I'm asking, what are you gonna do?
John,
Mr. Chair, and if this needs to hold off to another part of the agenda, I'm okay, but are we spending our money that was deposited in our account? Because we have a committee and we have a formal process for that money. And I think that if we're spending money out of ARP, and I'm not saying the accounting's wrong, I don't disagree with that. I'm saying the flow. If we're taking ARP money to fund our stuff here to operate, that we have a committee for that. That needs to come in front of the
You're
committee.
not taking it to, you're using a due to do from, which is a normal process in the accounting world. That money is by law, does not have to be a designated account. It sits in your general operating account. The
That's-
cash is being used.
Okay, I'm not just you on this. What I'm
Yeah.
disagreeing with is we have a committee that earmarks, we got a thing on here to earmark money, and I need to know, do I have $40,000 or whatever to give to the town
Yes,
clerk?
you have it.
So
It's the
this
re-
is how I'm taking it, is that, are they using money out of that account?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this is Cynthia Stoddard. I need to jump in.
Uh,
I think that John and Darlene are saying the same thing, that he's concerned about the ARPA money being spent and us all of a sudden presenting money or presenting projects to the board for approval, and we need that cash needs to be available for us to do those projects. It's earmarked for that. That's what it's for. Darlene's saying the same thing. In order for her to do a cash flow projection, she needs to understand the cash flow projects that are coming up, where all that money is pooled together in one cash account. So we're trying to make financial decisions on how to project if we're going to have enough money in the bank to pay for all of these different things that are going on. And we're trying to make these decisions without proper information being given to somebody that can do a cash flow projection to know, will we have to draw off the short-term borrowing? Are we getting close to where cash is running out? Because if all of a sudden you need money from the town garage fund because there's a project at the town garage that needs to be done, then the general fund needs to give them their money to do it, even though they've borrowed it for a short amount of time. So we're talking about, I think you're talking about the same things. We just have there's not been a thoughtful process through this and working together as partners in this to know all the pieces to the puzzle. That's why you guys are so confused. Darlene's trying to tell you that she is worried about cash. If all of a sudden, all of these funds need to use their money for a project that they absolutely have the right to do, then the cash is going to be dwindled down and the general fund is going to need money to pay their operating expenses. So someone needs to direct her, or someone there needs to work on what is happening that we need cash for in the next 3 months. Are we going to run out of cash? Whether it's general fund expense, whether it's ARPA expense, whether it's an expense for the town garage, we don't care. We just need to know what you need cash for.
I appreciate that and your comments, and excuse me for interrupting. At no time has anyone recommended or considered utilizing ARPA funds without authorization, given the fact that the ARPA funds are separate and apart from anything else that we could use. I completely appreciate the fact that Darlene is asking now for additional information from the treasurer and from the town manager to provide these projections. But at no time was anyone discuss using ARPA money without authorization. And in order to make sure that someone's concerned that that might happen, that's perfectly fine. If you need to have that additional information to do a projection, unless anyone here disagrees, that information will be provided for you.
If that the route you guys want to
Hey,
go,
listen,
it's really not up to me.
It's
It's your decision.
$795,000 that we spent, that we borrowed from somebody, okay? Whether we took it from the fuel money that we were supposed to be doing, we set the money aside to pay these future bills. We reached in and paid $795,000 out of that same source. Sooner or later, we ain't gonna have enough money to buy fuel or enough to pay the wages. So what she's addressing is that cash flow. We're fine at $795 because we had the extra cash because we haven't paid those bills yet. But once those bills start rolling in, what's the forecast before we run out? And we need to know that.
So provide you all the information that you need. How quickly can you get a projection together?
I don't, probably a week.
Okay. What information, who do you need that information from besides the treasurer?
Some from me,
The
I'm sure.
treasurer is out of town for a week. or plus, because Paul's out of town for a couple weeks.
Do we have it by the next meeting?
Russ will need to provide me with all of the information then,
Yes.
because Paul is on vacation. So I'll need to know all, I can look up wages, but we gotta project and anticipate
For how long?
overtime.
Until
For,
January 31st or,
no, till June 30th. We kind of gotta know.
oh, you want to go the
long
rest
enough.
of the year?
Yeah.
No,
let's-
she's right. If you go to the voters and ask, they can only give you money for the next year. They can't give you for the year we're in.
So we gotta kind of have an
Right.
estimate. What are we gonna be spending out of the budget? Are we, when, how, what months?
So if they come back and they say, you're gonna run out and you're gonna be, 320,000 short or 210, we then at the board have to address, okay, we gotta at least go out and borrow 210,000 to get through our fiscal year, or we're gonna run out of money.
We're not gonna be able to pay some expenses. Yeah.
Correct, but I also want to make sure that, I'm sorry, Toby, did I interrupt you?
No, I'm just agreeing with the conclusion.
Right. But ARPA money how is that in any way threatened by what we're doing
It's
here?
not,
Okay,
it's not.
It
There's
shouldn't even be
none of
talked
the
about what
funds.
we're doing, really.
Well, no, it came up, so that's
Completely-
why, yeah.
No, I know, I'm just saying,
It's just another piece of the pie, because if sorry, I can't say it. Digitization of the land records, so that expense is so again, you need cash for that. That's in the projections, we got a plan. If the ARPA committee has other things that are coming forward sooner than June, those are the kind of things that should be in your cash projection, because you're gonna spend that cash out before. So those are the things that factor in. What other things are highway doing? What other capital improvements are you doing in town? What other expenses? What else is going on? It's a big picture that should be done.
No,
On
and
a
I agree with you,
regular
because if this was a normal business, the second thing you'd be doing is, okay, we're gonna run out of 200,000, what can we pull our belt up and not maybe buy as much fuel or buy this or buy that in order to keep us in livelihood. So those are even things, so we only look more intelligent if we get to it sooner, to say, even though with June's a long ways off, we're gonna run out, we can at least control a little bit of our expenses to realize we're gonna run out, maybe we just won't spend as much on certain things until we get to the next year.
the ARPA funding as of today, December 8th, 2021 is how much?
It's half, so it's 440,000. Plus or minus.
I want to make a motion that 440,000, and I don't know if this is correctly worded, 440,000 should be segregated away from any monies and only subject to recommendations from the ARPA committee.
Kevin, it already is separated.
Well, I said, but again, it came up tonight and the insinuation was that it could possibly be utilized without authorization. And I want to make it unequivocally clear that that's never going to happen.
Well, then you need to do it with every single other fund you have, because you shouldn't just do it with the ARPA fund. But by nature, having a separate accounting of that money already segregates it and does what your motion is doing.
We have a separate fund for that.
The separate fund and a separate accounting for that was created by getting these funds that segregated it, and it can't be spent on anything but ARPA projects.
So how could the notion that we would spend it on anything other than ARPA product come up?
I think it's because the confusion is the pooled cash in one bank account versus separate accounting. Right now, if each one of you board members puts in $100,000 into one bank account, but we keep track of your expenses separately, we have a fund called Craig, we have a fund called Kevin, we have a fund called Jason. We have $500,000 in a checking account, but we're accounting for your expenses separately in a fund. If at any time you need 150,000, we might write a check, and then later they have to pay you that 50,000. It's cash versus fund accounting. It's very difficult to explain without visuals or without being in it every day, but we are absolutely accounting for the ARPA funds separately. There is no money being spent on undesignated projects for that. We're just borrowing money from the ARPA fund. We're gonna pay it back.
It's the cash, not the,
I think that's where Kevin's coming from, though. We shouldn't be borrowing it from that fund unless that
that's
comes from
normal
that
fund
committee.
accounting.
Yeah.
Normal, not normal, whatever. I don't think it's right either. I'm in agreement with him, but
Then what you guys,
Right.
then what you guys should do tonight is you should, or call a special town meeting to authorize a borrowing of $795,000. Because right now you're borrowing from all of your funds. So if you don't want to do that and that's uncomfortable for you and it's typical fund accounting and the accounting is being tracked separately, then that's what you're going to have to do because you're borrowing from other funds too. Not
Why
just-
even bring up the notion of being worried about borrowing from the ARPA fund?
We didn't,
Nobody did.
no, we're just saying that there's funds all over the place, yeah.
What did I miss?
but those
It was
funds don't have separate
misunderstood.
committees.
I think
right?
the
Am I wrong?
the
No.
notion that you were spending ARPA funds was misunderstood.
I agree, Millie. But you guys do whatever you do, make.
You suggested that we could use it and pay it back, right? Am I wrong?
No.
It's the cash. It's not
No, right,
the
yeah.
stuff that the ARPA fund accounts for. So today you say, I got a project, $440,000. We absolutely book all those expenses in that fund. We write a check from Muskoma Bank for $440,000 and ARPA is spent. Then your cash account only is that. Right now, you got 395,000 or 350,000 you're borrowing from other funds because ARPA's only 440. So Cynthia's right. You need to then go to the voters and ask to spend for emergency borrowing of 795,000 because that's what you're right now borrowing from.
I'm just
them.
telling you from my point of view, my opinion is I'm not comfortable with that. If it's separated, it's got its own board, its own
They
committee.
all, they're all.
I
they're
get
all
it.
separate.
I get it, but they're not though. They're not
But do
separate.
you separate at home? So if you are budgeting for a truck payment, do you have a separate bank account for your truck payment, a separate bank account for your groceries, a separate bank account for, it's the same concept that you budget and your money goes this way, but you have one checking account. And you manage it through an
But my-
accounting system,
But my
not through
fuel
a
account
cash
doesn't have
account.
a committee that takes ideas and gets approval to use that money. That's what I'm
It's
saying.
the cash you're just using, is you're not using the
Okay.
funds of that.
I'm not an
Fine.
accountant. I
But
don't know
I
how, I
am, so
don't,
why aren't you trusting that that is correct? I can verify
'Cause
and
I'm-
get it in
I just-
writing that Chad says it's
I
correct.
just said I'm not comfortable with it.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's not correct or not, I'm just not comfortable with it. That's what I'm saying.
okay.
I'm only one person, there's
Yeah,
five of us.
yeah,
If we don't wanna do
no,
something.
I
different, then
understand,
that's
it's
what I'm
hard
gonna
concept, but, so that your other option then tonight is to go to the voter,
All right.
call an emergency
Okay,
meeting.
I think we had a kind of an understanding a little while ago, and it just gets, it's very complicated.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be as complicated as we're making
We're not gonna
it.
solve it. tonight. We need to
So
come back.
let's, I think we came to a good place a little while ago, and let's stay there for now.
I'm
So-
fine, just
Yeah.
you guys make your decision.
Can I just, so as a taxpayer, so I put my paycheck in the bank.
Mhm.
I earmark it for my truck payment, my fuel, my power and all that. And I decide I'm gonna take my truck payment money and I'm gonna go out to dinner. I'm gonna use that because it's all in the same account and it's all cash. So I use that, I go out to dinner. Then what I do is I'm short, so then I ask my neighbor for money to make my truck payment. Is that right? Is that what you just said?
Kind of, no, well, you
No,
would
no,
ask your neighbor.
no,
you
no,
would
Well, I'm
go-
gonna ask the
Exactly.
taxpayers, so
Or
I
you're
can't go to
gonna-
the taxpayers, so I'm gonna ask my neighbor.
Designate,
gonna-
that is one.
You're not understanding, Chuck. This
No.
is a better way to explain it. You get a paycheck and we normally pay you 100,000 a week. You say, okay, I'm gonna pay this bill and this bill. At the end of the week, you go, well, next week I'll pay that bill, but I'll go buy it here. Who cares? Because I'm gonna get more money next week. I'll pay for it. So
Right,
you're just borrowing from the cash
you're
flow.
just robbing Peter to
You're
pay Paul.
it's all your
You're always
money,
behind.
it's all your money, you just paid one bill quicker than you paid the other one.
And if you think you should be paying me $100,000 a week, I've been short.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I was trying to make you feel good and trying to show you're underpaid.
All right, and thank you again, Toby, for bringing us back to earth, from wherever the hell we were. ARPA, ARPA should be something, though, I think we are in agreement. We should wait and make sure that when the ARPA committee gives us a recommendation, that money is there. Is that acceptable?
I don't have any disagreement. That's why I asked earlier when we kind of got on this tangent was I see it on the agenda down further and I said, should we wait till
Yeah,
then?
I'm not.
But yeah,
I'm with
I
you.
agree with you. I
I
agree
have
with you.
no idea where that came from, and that, at the end of the day, we're not gonna spend ARPA money unless we get a recommendation from the board we established to actually do it. Period. So, can we move on? Thank you so much, Toby.
I have one quick thing, Kevin. Nate Stoddard.
Hey, Nate.
Well, I just want to circle back to the original conversation of where we're at to pay our indebtedness of $795,000 to fix the storm. It sounded like there was still confusion and there's looks on folks' face of a misunderstanding or an unsureness of what is our actual surplus. So my questions too, did every board member see and read the email from Jordan Plummer?
Should have.
I did.
It was forwarded to them.
So if you read that, it's pretty clear. You have a 485,000 general fund. You earmarked 100 for appropriated 100 for FY22 budget to offset taxes. So you have, and then 35 and 10. So you have 340 for surplus. This is what they were saying, not 440. So you had 795 for your storm damage. You used 150 of the emergency. You used 100 out of the surplus. So the 100 comes out of the 340. So Toby looks confused still.
You can see me?
So I just want you to, I just really think you guys think you have 100,000 more than you do, but maybe I'm wrong. So basically where I'm going with this is the way I look at this is you have 240 surplus. Now you got to pay back the 150 for your emergency unless you guys don't want to put money into emergency fund that we were so encouraged to do in the past. So now you have 240 or you have 340, put the 150 back. Now you only have 190. So you don't really have a lot of surplus. But I guess my basic question was, did everybody read it and are you completely understanding of what that says?
Anyone not in complete understanding in what that says?
Say that I'm in complete understanding. I understand it enough.
No, I just think we've already discussed that. We're in total disagreement over 100,000. I agree with what he's saying. But let's just come back to it and just prove that what Nate's saying is right. And I don't disagree at all with what Nate's saying. But let's just make sure when we come back that we're at least in agreement. It's always over the 100,000, but at least we're in agreement over that.
Always.
Okay?
Yeah, the way you explained it makes sense to me.
Okay.
I guess the only thing I would say is we don't have to put money into we drain the emergency reserve fund, or we're about to. But we're not required to put any money into it. And so if we don't put any into next year because we don't have it, then wait till we do have it.
No, but that 795, we owe 795. We need to come back with a concrete plan.
Right,
This is
that's
where we're
something
gonna do. And
else,
if we decide as select board not to put the 150, that's at least it balances out to the 795. My whole thing was get back to the 795. This is how we're paying for it.
Okay. Can we move forward?
Yes.
Any more public comment? Okey dokey. Moving on to the budget review. Or I'm sorry, Darlene, did you have more to say?
No, I think it's too early to talk about your estimated surplus for fiscal year 22. That was on here. I think it's too early in the process.
Okay, and we will get you the information or data that you need to do the projection. Okay?
Thanks, Al.
Thank you, yes, very much. Okay, budget review, discussion.
Starting on page 1, we have confirmation of the items in blue. Those are correct for the expenditures of computer software and NIMRIC and VLCT's membership dues, Wyndham Regional Planning Commission's annual due, and our insurance from VLCT. So the items in blue are correct.
We're good now, so.
All right, page 2, we had no questions on. Page 3, the assessment firm, as I brought to you last meeting, that their fees will not go up this coming year. And we have talked to Ernie and talked about the CAMA costs and the MS costs tables. And we've seen a very large bump this year, but next year should be back to a level small increase. So the 1,800 would suffice. Questions, just yell. Page 4, we had no questions. Page 5, we just got confirmed yesterday that the animal control will be 7,500. So the 8,000 can be changed to 7,500.
That's paid to the sheriff's firm.
I'm sorry,
That's paid to the sheriff's department.
that's correct. Why it's in red is that you folks have not made a decision on the Wyndham County Sheriff. I talked to Putney today. They are still in flex of what they're going to do, as you were. They're not seeing the service that was promised, but yet they want the service that was promised. So it is a dilemma. There's no question about it. We all hate the huge increase to $97,000. So
What would 60,000 get us, presumably?
1,000 hours
1,000 hours.
versus the 2,000 hours.
Basically cut it in half. But
Well, it's honestly worse than that, because our deal, if you remember right, was our officer was working for us and Putney, and their officer was working for them and Westminster, so that we were getting twice as much coverage because the hours didn't.
But of the
Overlap.
60,000, he still owes us hours from the year before, and he was here saying that he would give us those hours.
That will be made up before this budget.
That's what I'm
kicks in.
saying. So I feel comfortable that 60,000 in this budget coming up will be fine, because we're gonna
Me
have.
too.
We have some hours that are gonna be paid from the budget before.
I think they're having a meltdown.
Hmm.
Seriously.
I have noticed them around more since our last
In
meeting.
the last
Oh,
2
really?
weeks, yeah.
Yeah,
I
the truck,
haven't
yeah.
seen them.
That's 'cause you're
I don't know what they're
up on
doing,
top
but
of
I
the
just noticed the truck.
That's because
hill. You're up on top of the hill.
In different times, I got called out the other night, 10:30, there was a tree across the
We need to
bridge,
find out
Saxon Bridge,
what
Gageville,
Uh-huh.
and the sheriff called, and he was out patrolling then.
I'll get this.
The next day I saw him in Kern Hatton during the day,
Oh, good.
so their hours are overlapping. Well, you said the last couple of weeks.
So
So
are we going with 60?
Yes,
I'm good with it.
Yes,
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 Yes, yes.
yes, 60 it is.
yes.
Transfer to the retreatment fund, that would be the request for our pavement. We went up last year, maintaining the 135. But we want to increase that.
I think because of the storm this year, we need to get through this year. We need to get through one
I
more.
think it definitely needs to go up, but may not be the year
Yeah.
to do it.
Okay. Page 6, we had no questions. 7 or 8 are brand new. So cemetery fund, we're maintaining, we're in our second year of mowing, so that shouldn't go up. Our stone repair seems to be being covered. And it's in need. We have some very old stones that, so
That's the question. So how much have we spent so far this year? FY '22 on that? I mean, we didn't spend anything last year.
I think that's an incorrect dollar amount, but I couldn't be positive about it, but I know he's got hours spent this year because we had quite a few in the west that needed
Mhm.
TLC.
Okay.
They're so fine now, they're so thin, it's incredible.
Who does that, Malcolm?
Chris,
Oh,
Chris,
oh,
yeah. So beside the health and welfare services, you'll see that some of them joined the budget for the first time, but we still have the visiting nurse is in their second year. Sebbets is at 0 because he was, they are not carrying over any funds from last year. Institute Butterfield Library jumped to 75. They're in their third year, so it is also 0. They will need to have an article at town meeting. Turning the page, if you're ready. Waste and trash is in our brand new contract, and those are the estimated fees that go along with it. And as I've detailed in red, it's an 11.5% increase. Working our way down, the Senior Center and Activities Commission are in our budget. West Library, they're in their second year, asking for the additional 7,000. So it's been set at 84, but they're still requesting their seven additional $1,000. Moving down, the firefighting forest allocation is still the same. County tax has been going up roughly 3% every year, and that's what that
So I have a question.
represents.
So we didn't pay anything last year?
2 years ago, the payment went to them and they never cashed it. So we couldn't show a cost to it. We called them and nothing was resolved.
Oh.
So I don't know if we were the only town that did that or what, but we tried.
Okay. Hope it happens again.
I'm done, but unless you have questions, page 8 is the bottom line. And it's,
Why can't we discuss this? So we'll, on the transfer to capital fund. Why can't we go back and just not make it an article and just put like 175,000 under the equipment fund under the old 3 code here, 533, would be under the where his budget is. So instead of making an article, just put it would be a capital expenditure for equipment, to be equipment fund. I don't know why we keep going as an article. That way,
Create a new line item under 5330.
Talking about this is actually the equipment.
it would be under equipment fund, under your budget.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? I guess it would be, you know how you got equipment for the loader and all that, but you got equipment miscellaneous, we'd either add another line item or put
So
it
this is
somewhere in there,
003 53
I'm
30.
just saying,
something like that.
don't make it an article, put it into the budget.
It's something, it's so you wouldn't, it would be just equipment, and we're not having a long discussion whether it's a truck, whether it's a loader, whether it's a backhoe or an excavator. It's just equipment,
The scheduled equipment.
schedule equipment. And we could take one more look at it, but you know, at 150, you're covering the trucks and a little bit of the pickups and all that, but you're not covering the loader or down the road, because having two loaders and an excavator, sooner or later, you need to have some extra money to actually accumulate. So you can buy that purchase that's once every 10, 15 years, but you got about 4 or 5 of them. But
Any objection to that?
Oh, I think we talked about it. I think it's good.
The dollar amount should be,
would like to see put 175.
What's the justification for that?
It's when you start to look at, it's gonna cost you, you have 6, we do every 7 years, you have 150,000 basically roughly every year you have for a truck. So you have 1 year you don't, but then those are the 2 pickups.
Right.
And if you don't at least get 25 to 35,000 a year to add to the bottom line, because in another 3, 4 years, he's gonna need another 100, 150 to buy a loader or an excavator or something, and that probably won't even cover it all, you know what I'm saying? The trucks are every 7 years, and you got 6 of them. The loaders and the backhoes are 15 to 20 years, but now you have 2 loaders and a grader, an excavator. You start adding up a mower, so the next one would be the mower probably coming up. It isn't,
No,
just brand new.
no, the mower is brand new. Yeah, you're right.
that newer stuff too, though, with all the emissions and electronics, and they're never gonna last 15 or 20.
No, that's,
Or if they do, you're gonna,
Well, that's what.
you're
we're
gonna spend a lot of
run
money
into.
repairing.
yeah, they're gonna be like the truck where you gotta rotate them quicker, you know? So
Unfortunately.
I mean, my wish would be 200, but I think we gotta take a stepping stone to get there, so I thought 175. We've been 145 for a while, you know, on it.
Thoughts?
I just had a question, Mr. Chair.
Shoot.
Do we have an equipment budget and or asset inventory when these are supposed to be replaced? So we don't-
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so
The hard part is, like we were just saying, some of that equipment that you last 10, 15 years, you're forecasting far out that you don't know how much they're gonna go up, you know, on it, so, yeah. But at least we could do a 5-year budget.
right, that's why I guess I wanted to see what you're, if we're tracking with what you're asking, we say that that's what we need, why in our forecasting that we meet that end.
Well, just that tractor this summer with a recall was like, what, 8 or 10 grand or something?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's 12
So luckily it was covered, but-
Just for repair on the.
3 or 4 years late from now, it won't be covered, and
Right.
you're gonna have to eat it or
Yep, no.
get rid of it or
That's
whatever.
why you want to build up those.
I want to bring up
Yeah.
the fuel tanks again. And,
Are we just,
We're gonna have to go back and make sure we're in agreement on it.
yeah, I want to make sure we're in agreement on what Craig is saying.
right,
I think it
Okay.
makes sense.
and I'm not sure this would be a budget item anyway, but,
Are we in agreement?
It makes sense to me.
yeah, I'm good with it.
put it in the budget.
So the board's agreeing that.
You'll come back with a line category, Russell, right?
Okay.
Russell?
Excuse me?
You'll come back with a line category.
Absolutely, yep.
Mhm.
Any comment from the general public on that decision?
I have a comment or question on the budget in general. Is this the time?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe for Chuck directly, I guess. So stone and gravel is 50, additional stone Act 64 is 10. The wonderful work that was done after the storm, I see a variety of materials that use to repair stuff that we don't normally see. So is our future maintaining of these materials, are they gonna maybe warrant us the need for more money? So specifically like SurePack, all of the stone that we then put back in all the ditches, so the 50 and the 10, I'm guessing, Chuck, is what you just generally need for your just ongoing repairs. What about continuing repairs of this new stuff that's gonna cost us more? Can we do more if we have more? And should we think about maybe a little bit more in those two line items to help keep us up on our roads so that damage isn't so significant in another event? You know what I'm getting at? I guess I'm just asking if there might be a thought of maybe more in those two line items.
So we used SurePack before, and when it says gravel, stone and gravel, that also includes some SurePack that we were using before. The biggest reason we used SurePack to repair the roads after the flood was we got all our material from Cold River Material in an attempt to streamline that so we could better keep track of what we had coming and going. We bought all the materials so contractors wouldn't be trying to mark anything up. And they do not have 1.25 inch gravel. So they don't have any. We substituted it with SurePack to get the job done.
Oh, sure. I'm not in disagreement with that. I'm just wondering if you might need more to
Where we
facilitate
ended up,
that type of material. Just wondering if you need more money.
we could, if we wanted to start using SurePack instead of gravel, we would definitely have to add money to the budget to do that.
I don't think that,
These roads that got SurePack put on them, you're gonna have to maintain them with SurePack.
Oh.
No.
You grade it, we would add gravel back and just mix it right in. And that's why,
Hopefully it's not that sandy gravel.
no,
The roads are leaching water like they've never had before, and they're drier than they've always been with the gravels that were used from the storm. I remember going back to a conversation or comment that you made about our gravels when we were talking about the gravel pit and that we were getting such sandy stuff. That's why we're all had slimy roads. The roads now are really good. So I'm just, again, want to make sure we have enough money to maintain them to the level that they're at so we can have these nice roads. And if you need more money, maybe we should think about that.
fair enough. So,
you were involved with this project, Chuck. I mean, you're comfortable that this is gonna cover what he's saying?
now what he's saying, no, if you want to start using SurePack on all your roads, you're gonna have to double my gravel budget.
Or just the roads that have them. I don't know how you're gonna mix gravel back into the roads that are SurePack and have them maintain the same stiffness, I guess. I don't know what the word would be, but I just was wanting to make sure you had enough money to maintain all the new work that was just done to protect it, to protect the federal money, to protect our money. Just want to be able to make sure we're going to be able to maintain it and not let it all just slip away.
Right. So as I said, we already buy SurePack and we've already, Davidson Hill for years, that hill has been SurePack, and we already purchased SurePack in our stone and gravel budget to maintain those areas. And so it's stone and gravel is just the aggregate we use, so I would just have to buy more SurePack and less gravel. It's a pretty generalized.
But even though we had
Category.
that storm we had, you didn't deplete our source. You're comfortable that our sources of everything that's in the pit is where it should normally be.
That's part of the reason why we bought everything from Cold River. So our pit that we utilize
We didn't
for
use
our
our
sand and gravel, we didn't deplete it. So for years down the road, we wouldn't be screwed up.
Okay.
We do not buy the same sand and gravel that we had for years before. It comes from a totally different source. So, but as far as dust and that kind of thing goes, that's where your chloride comes in. Good.
Go ahead, John.
To what the point I think is trying to be made here is we've mitigated these roads. We had this earlier on this conversation. We were talking about
Yeah,
what we
no,
put back.
appreciate that.
And so the forward thinking is to increase that, to put back the sure pack, because that's what you mitigated this storm with, and that's what FEMA's looking at. So if we go back and we have another event, they come out and they go, wait a minute, you guys are not putting sure pack down in your maintenance plan. You could find yourself at a disadvantage. And I think that's exactly what he's trying to say. So the point he's making is, should we increase these budgets long-term, which I think we should. So we put down what we've put down on these roads. We can't change it because we can find ourselves at a disadvantage down the road.
Well, and as time goes by, good gravel is increasingly harder and harder to find,
Sure.
so. The sure pack being a more or less a byproduct over there, they have a mountain of it.
Right.
As long as they're in business, they'll have sure pack. It's close,
But you're just married to one place.
but it's, yeah, and it is more
Your
expensive,
procurement
so.
Policy out the window because you're not
Well,
gonna
you
get three
can
prices on
justify,
sure.
you can justify, I don't want to go too deep, but you can justify that we
Oh,
don't
no,
have
I'm
a
just
source.
explaining.
That's-
I understand
Yeah,
how it
no.
works. I'm very well, I'm just not sure everybody did.
Nate,
Yes.
does that address anything you're concerned about?
Yeah, I just don't get hung up on the fact that I said sure pack. I'm also referencing the added miles of 7-inch minus or whatever you call that stuff that's now in the ditches. We're gonna have to now maintain those ditches with all that big stone in it. So just, again, I'm just thinking forward of needing further money to, the 10,000 for your Act 68 stone covers what he normally does. Well, normally it's now been increased. So we just gotta make sure that we're gonna be able to maintain the increased amount of repairs that we did.
The thought in my simple head on the Act 64, the 7-inch minus stone, is that as it gets dirty, we take it out, we haul it back to the town garage. We sift the organic material, the leaves, the road sand, whatever becomes in it, then we reuse it. We have only on hand 1,000 yards of that material just to take the place of what we've taken out to recycle. So you're always gonna reuse that same stone. Because eventually we are gonna run out of it, so we've gotta dream something up.
Okay,
All right, good, thank you, good plan.
thank you, Nate.
I'm
always.
comfortable with Chucky's simple mind.
That's good. We think alike.
Terrific. Anything else? Yes, we are.
Well, we didn't discuss,
We didn't discuss the interest due for the line of credit.
transfer, these other.
Wait, where are we?
We're in the middle of our budget review.
Okay.
So we've concluded page 7 and 8. We've addressed the equipment purchase item. And then we did discuss what Nate brought up, which was very good.
But we didn't discuss, go back to page 8, we didn't discuss transfer bridge fund. I assume that's still gonna be an article, and I guess the question is, do we keep it? Going back to what Sue was probably thinking, are we gonna keep it? What are we gonna keep the bridge fund at?
Well, I mean, I think that we're going to need quite a bit more money in that fund. When is the West Bridge due?
We don't have a date by any
Don't
means,
have a date.
but
Okay.
that being said, there is infrastructure money coming to towns that could possibly help that
Uh-huh.
situation.
So maybe this is year not to put more additional money into the bridge fund?
I would say that's correct.
So we would
Well,
leave it
our
at-
forecast will
we
be
would still
much
ask for
clearer after.
25,
No,
We'll still ask for the 25
right, still ask for the 25.
in a budget, in an article, as we
So
did.
last year
Okay.
you asked for 25, but then you asked for an additional one afterward.
I suggested that we should put more in.
Right.
Which we did from the
Yeah.
From
surplus.
the surplus, we put it in.
Right, I see the 35,
Right,
right,
exactly.
okay,
But if we stick with the 25, that's kind of what we've been asking for.
keep that, yeah, okay,
Everybody in agreement?
yep.
Great. Okay, let's move forward to the interest due for the line of credit.
Are you gonna put any money in your capital fund?
Uh,
For your
Sure.
highway issue stuff, I mean, your highway, tank that you're saying needs.
Oh, thank you. Fuel tanks.
Okay, so in the garage fund, we have 63,000. It'll probably take another 10,000, you think? From your estimate, which is at this point, it's 81,000, but you think,
I think that if we cut down the size of the fuel tank from an 8,000 gallon diesel fuel tank to a 4,000,
yeah,
because that would give us 1,000 gallons buffer.
yeah,
So when I go down to 1,000 gallons up in the tank, I could order a load. That'd be a whole truckload, would fill the tank, and we'd be all right. I think the reason they had 8,000 back in the day is because when you get a transport load, a whole tractor trailer load of fuel at one time, it's 8,000 gallons. So I think that's possibly why years ago, they set it up that way. So they could take a whole
What we
tractor
call
trailer
them-
load at a time and get a better deal or whatever. I
It's
don't
a
know.
much better deal, what we call it unmetered. In other words, think about it. So you'd have a compartment,
Right.
you're not running it through a meter, you actually just open up
It's
a
a belly
hose and
draw,
dump
they
it.
call it,
So they would, tractor trailer can haul 7,300 gallons legally. You have an 8,000 gallon tank, you can pull over, you just open up the belly of the tank
Sure.
and let it go.
But those days are over.
right.
So,
So my
so-
point is, I know nothing about the size of the tank. I trust what you're saying. So,
You're right.
scary as it is. So what I'm saying is, if we ask for, say, another $10,000 for the garage fund, which would give us 73.
Yeah.
At the end of this year, you could replace those tanks, the end of the fiscal year, if we got the money,
hopefully,
and that would be good timing. We don't want to wait too much longer, correct?
right. It's not gonna get any cheaper.
Right, so maybe
Is this an article?
15,000, that's what I'm saying, put 15,000 more into the garage fund, which would give
Through
us,
an article?
to an article, I get that. Yeah, that's what we usually do.
No, last time we went to the voters and asked them to transfer money into it, but yeah, you could. Or do we just actually ask put 15 into the
Budget.
Yeah, into the project. And now you.
It would go into the budget, right?
Right, just go into the budget, just put it as a line item in the budget. You're gonna have to do it. You already got that much money set aside.
I will continue to hammer on the contractors and try to get you a concrete price on downsizing the
Yeah.
tanks, so we know.
Members of the board, what's your pleasure?
If we did, what item would we put it under in the budget?
Goes under his budget still, so we could ask
Yeah.
Russ to come back and put that, that'd be the 0.
Would it be a separate line item?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know,
We can make a separate line. The only trouble with it is we put a separate line in and it says fuel tank and then the next year's gone and we never keep staying there. and We never
10
see
years
it.
from now.
But
We're going-
it's at zero and
Yeah.
Why
So,
wouldn't
you could,
why couldn't you call it property improvement, and then when we go to add on to the garage or whatever, you would still pull out of that same line item?
you
just
could
add
actually,
it
to
to
be
it.
honest with you, could actually just increase the heat, where's the fuel, just increase the fuel would be part of the fuel bill. You see what I'm saying?
Yep,
As long as
Really?
you remember next year, that's why it increased.
Right,
That
right.
was the reason for that.
but that would be earmarked exactly where it's going. It was just the cost of fuel was to get rid of the tanks.
Right,
You see what I'm saying?
yep.
Yes, I
So-
guess the fewer the articles, the better.
So if we could add 15, was it 10 or 15? You just said.
15 would bring us to 78. And which,
And hopefully that,
yeah,
Russ, if you did that, and we would just put that little thing to the side where it says 15 was added for the
so you're
tank.
gonna make the 75 to 90.
Right, and then put that little note to the right, that way the voters would even see it, knowing that we put, really 15 of it was replace the tank.
and plus we would take 63,000 from the garage fund.
So I don't understand, you said 63K, then you said 75 to 90. Where did that just come from?
Good question, Lily.
In the budget. He just said add it to the fuel line.
I
On
don't
page
see-
6.
Oh, okay, I didn't see the fuel line, okay.
Are we all in agreement that that's what we want to do?
Yes.
We're gonna make that
Good
at
idea.
90.
Yes.
Okay, 75, make
Yes.
it 90.
Put tank
Yes.
replacement as an
Okay.
memo.
Well, while you're looking at my budget, can we take and take money out of retreatment and create another line for asphalt maintenance, which would be for your coal patch and.
What difference does it make, really? It's all part of the same. so-
Well, it is, but it would be, so you know, as a taxpayer, what it costs just to maintain. Not so much new roads, it's just filling potholes and all that, you know.
Crack seal, no, that's different.
That would be part
That's
of it.
maintenance.
It's still earmarked for paved roads. As long as it's earmarked for paved road, which is retreated, you're in the
Okay.
same category. When we start to actually earmark it to change dirt roads to tar, that would be like an article or something on it. But I just think that it just becomes too many informational. Sometimes it's to fix tar roads.
Okay.
So you go out to contract and that's up to your discretion. See, hey, I'm gonna leave my fund 15,000 short so I can use it for a coal patch. Just nothing stopping you from doing it.
No, that's what we've been doing.
Right, you've been doing it, so you have the right to keep doing it. Why not? Might as well.
Yeah,
you know.
all right,
Good,
perfect.
everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we can move on to interest due on line of credit.
You can tell you're a banker, aren't you? You just keep coming back to that.
Absolutely.
Do we know how much we owe on August 1st?
No,
Mr. Town Manager?
no, I have not asked that. It's been 1% per month, so.
Do you think
It's
you can?
just a mathematical thing, huh?
It is, but you might as well get the breakdown from Katie.
Mhm.
Can you get Katie to give us a breakdown? Please?
I will surely do that.
And where would that go on the budget?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to find. what
Should be in
line.
under the select board expenses. And if we have to add a line, we would add a line.
Because I'm certain there'll be discussion on that as well.
Outside of miscellaneous, but I don't think you really want to put it there. Or do you? It could be miscellaneous since you're only gonna borrow it for 1 year.
Do you want it a breakdown to August 1st? Or do you want it to July 1st? Not that it's a big deal, but to cover, well, you want it in next year, so it would be August 1st. Sorry. Those are my own question.
Okay, are we good on that? You'll have that in there for the next meeting?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Capital expenses?
Well, we just talked about one.
Yep,
Where you at now?
right in the middle.
We're in the
You're over
agenda.
here.
There was a little moving around there as we got,
We've already discussed that, so that's what threw me off.
okay. If there's anything else to discuss on that, comfortably moving through the line. You can also tap off Wyndham County Sheriff. That's been discussed and our decision has been made. Single audit for federal dollars.
We were talking about it at the ARPA level, that once we start spending and we get over a certain threshold, we'll need a single audit. Then in talking with Chad Hewitt from Sullivan Powers, they're also going to add monies that we got from FEMA. So the two are federal funds and they won't separate them. They'll lump them together. So monies that have been received from those two entities to those two funds will be audited. It's a $7,500 item and it can be covered by FEMA. But there will be an initial we'll have to pay it up front and have it. And then we can get reimbursed for it. So that should be something that we have in some line item to cover.
That's going to our audit, annual audit and
Probably,
expenses.
yeah. We can,
So you want to, which is 12,500 now, you're suggesting we add
what line,
7,500?
where are you?
Page 3,
Thank you.
under auditing, annual audit and expenditures.
Yes,
So you're gonna make that 18,000?
Even, you mean?
No, what do you say?
7,500, so it'd be 20,000.
$20,000.
Hey, Kevin, it's Cynthia. When you get a sec, can I interrupt?
Hey, yes, please, go ahead.
So I'm curious if the $7,500, I wasn't aware that you could get reimbursed. I'm not questioning, I'm just saying that's not something that I knew. That you could get reimbursed by FEMA for the $7,500 for the single audit. Are you gonna make sure you put the $7,500 as a revenue to cover that cost? So that you don't raise property taxes to cover that cost?
That is an excellent question. Russell?
I don't see the issue, except that we aren't sure of when we're going to get it, because it will be hashed out at the very, very end. We could be actually in another full fiscal year before we see it.
I know, but this is one of the things I've been asking for years, is that we budget items, expenses that you raise tax dollars for with the hope that later we may be reimbursed. And then we get reimbursed, and then basically the town is getting that money twice for that one expense.
Which comes first? You have to spend the 75 before they'll even give you your money back, or?
Yes.
So it is one of those, you have to spend the money. It isn't like you can go, oh, we got the 75, so now let's spend it and get an audit. What
I
you're
know
saying.
I know that, Craig, but if you know you can get reimbursed for that, even if it's in another fiscal year,
I'm with you. I'm not just.
It's no different than budgeting for culverts and then never going over budget on your culvert, but then getting a grant to cover that culvert. You got the money twice. You're getting it from taxpayers and you're getting it from a grant fund.
If we put the 75, we're in the revenue page, so I'm looking at the revenue page. What you're suggesting is we put 7,500, which I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying either, but which line item would you put?
It might be a new one called FEMA reimbursement. I don't know what it would be called.
I bet
But
I make a separate line item that way we're tracking it.
I mean, I would want to be 100% sure that you thought you were real. I've never heard that you get an audit reimbursement from FEMA, but that just may be something I've never heard.
Anyway, we can, did you speak to, oh, I'm sorry, John, did we speak to her about that? Is that something that,
I spoke to the FEMA rep and she said it was, can be, and then we got to talking about the ARPA money, and that's when I called Chad, and Chad's also confirmed that he thought that FEMA would cover the audit.
I mean, I wouldn't put the 75 in as a revenue unless I got something in writing from somebody saying that we were going to be getting that eventually. But I really am tired of being taxed on something and then the town getting reimbursed for it also. It just feels like there's been several instances where we have been taxed on something and then the money comes in for that same expense later, meaning that you've actually got the money to reimburse for that expense more than once. So that just.
So we just take a gamble and don't put the 7,500 on
Yeah,
that
just
line.
tell them we don't want the money. Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with what she's saying, was just when you got 2 different years, it does make it hard.
Right.
So I could say, let's not put the 7,500 in, and then we could address it down that, hey, we're 100% sure, and then we can always at that time figure out how to.
On the revenue side.
Gotta be in and out. We gotta be able to, I'm with you, Cynthia, really. Yeah, to ask for that 7,500, we got no guarantee that we're even gonna use it until we're a little more sure than what we are right now tonight.
So I leave
Yeah, but
Mr.
If you're gonna raise tax dollars for it, there's no sense in getting it back from FEMA. Because then you're just taxing me twice. My federal dollars are paying for it and my town dollars are paying for it. So if you, I mean, you have to have the money budgeted for the expense. That's an expense you're gonna have to have. I'm just asking, where is the money gonna be accounted for on the other side? Is it tax dollars, or if it's FEMA dollars? And to me, you can't ask for both, that's all.
Yes, I'm personally in agreement. I just would not put the 7,500 and figure when we get there, because you're right. If we don't ask for the 75, we don't get it. We also don't have the expenditure for the 75.
Yeah, you gotta have that audit no matter what.
Yeah.
You don't have the choice.
Excuse me.
Who's gonna pay for the audit?
Everyone.
Yeah. You know the way around it. Federal law.
It triggers it like 750,000, no matter where your funds come from, it's cumulative. And Russ was asking about, there's been conversation, and I know that there's some information sent. We can find the answer to that question if that's what you'd like, as far as, do you get reimbursed? You weren't told you did, so you're just kind of.
No, I was
No, we
told
were
twice that we were,
Then
I
would-
didn't get it in writing,
You
but
didn't get-
both,
That's what I was saying. If you
Well,
get it in writing.
I
then
think
that's great.
Cynthia's saying
Yeah.
maybe if you got it in writing,
Yep.
if it's possible to get it in writing.
I think maybe a good resource there as well, and I don't know if she's on, but Bobby Kilburn, she sent some stuff over, and she seems to work on this a lot as well. So
Okay.
I would, she's part of the our committee as well, so I think you reach out there. I'll do some digging. I'll ask the questions, as far as where we are. It's just, when you get reimbursed, it just depends on how we exercise our process and our flow. Some things are upfront, like if I write a grant for you, you have to pay me upfront. There's no guarantee you're gonna get your money back. But there's administrative costs that are built into these platforms, so we just have to know what they are. I think
Okay.
that's a great question to know, so.
Well, let's see if we can get some type of written instruction on that before the next meeting. Anyone else?
we're gonna leave it 12.5 for right now.
That's right. Unless somebody objects. Okay. State of Vermont, ACCD opportunity, John Jones.
Good evening, everyone. Hello.
Where you been?
Hi.
Been sitting right here. So I think we've discussed it quite a bit. I know I have like 5 minutes on, but I guess first, does the board have any further questions about that? The need, the why and stuff?
What was this for? This was what you had before?
Yeah, this is, so the state of Vermont.
Scoping?
No, this is to set up a committee for community development, and the state is
Oh.
pushing hard in programs. And all towns are kind of getting on board, like Springfield's doing some downtown revitalization. And they have to actually go through certain channels, and ACC at the Vermont level is pipelining that, so V-Trans is a participant. All these other agencies are coming online, so having this committee will help us, and it'll help bridge a lot of these gaps, like grants, for example. They can work on these grants because we had an opportunity of $500,000 to leverage with everybody else to pay for some zoning. And we lost that because we don't have the time to do it. In this last grant I went for, we just didn't have time, I pulled it together, and our town manager didn't seem to have time to do that. So this committee can help us do that, and we can pull, there are people that want to be on it, and we have resources, and this will help us help our community and our neighbors, and so it helps us mitigate what they're tasking us with. And even in the transportation wheelhouse, there's a lot there. So
You have some volunteers want to be on the committee?
I've had some people say that they have an interest, but it's just up to you folks. If you establish the committee, then we can dive right in. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people emailing in to say, yeah, we'll do it. So it's a great resource for the select board as well. You guys, it'll take a lot of research, and you guys can say, we want to go after this or this. And I think it'll build a platform. You'll have an understanding what grants you can use. So for what and when you can use them, and other things, and how you build your infrastructure for a resilient future. Because we have to look at housing. We know we're there, housing, what kind of housing? Sewer, water infrastructure, sidewalks, we're talking about all that. And that's what these folks will do in partnership with the state and other agencies. So if there's any questions or anybody has some feedback. There's a
Town
lot to it.
manager,
There's a lot to it.
I do not. John and I have talked about this and once the committee's up and running, I think it's a great idea.
how big will the committee be?
I think a 5-member, I think 5 is a good number.
And will you need any resources?
Hard to tell until it gets established and we start getting some collaboration going. It's really, truly hard to sell right now.
Okay, and so if we initiate that this evening, you will then come back to us with what, a structure and the people who are interested?
Yes, I can bring that back. Not a
Okay.
problem. Not a problem at all. Like I said, it's up to
Ladies and
you.
gentlemen,
Take a vote on it. and-
Sure.
yes,
Can you come back with something a little more in writing too, a little more of the scope of what this is gonna be about? So that, the only reason I'm saying is we form a committee, we're actually passing a written form in front of us that this is what we're in agreement to. And then we can actually come document that we'll be the select board appointing the members to that board. And that you'll be required to have minutes. So the first thing is just the scope of what this committee will do.
You're looking for a purpose and objective kind of statement.
Yeah.
What's the purpose?
mission statement,
Mission statement.
table of organization,
So
number of people, and,
do you not have that for your other committees? I'm just asking.
We haven't
because-
formed a committee in a long time, but
Well,
yes.
well, you're planning, your
That's not a
zoning.
committee, though. Those are commissions. I think those are different.
Yeah, but you still would have that would be sort of the same, like you're saying, meeting. Once we talk meetings, we're all in the open meeting law, like the select board and anything. So you would have that. Do you have that? I'm just looking for a template that you guys have already established that we can build off from. So everybody has continuity across the board. I'm happy to do it. I'm not saying no. I'm
yeah,
just saying,
please do so with the
I'll do the
mission.
best with my resources. I'll reach out to folks.
Yeah, you know what to do. It's a
Yeah.
mission statement, your table of organization. And then those people, as you inferenced, that are willing to participate and put their time into it. And then what that table of organization is going to look like. And as Craig said, and then we'll authorize the whole thing.
And I think maybe it might be a good idea to revisit it like with a sunset date or something, a couple of years from now, or a year from now, and to see.
I mean, you're
what you've
asking,
done.
you're asking the select board to be involved with, help you form the committee and everything. This is a golden mission that the select board has to be behind. If all of a sudden we come behind, we help you form a committee and you want to go out and tear down all the bridges.
No. Let me-
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Just a simple of like, okay, this is what your goal is to do.
I don't have a problem. I'm just trying, okay, so if you guys are voting to establish this committee and then I come back with the folks and we start working on this overlay of how it's gonna operate. I need some feedback from you folks. You're the select board and no one's gonna go out and start doing all that stuff. This is to help. It's part of the state mission. If you look at our town plan that goes with the Wyndham Regional Plan and all these other plans, this is already kind of pipelined in there. So we're just trying to do a local committee. So look at it this way. So we have a local say and we have a board to come back to you guys. So you guys have all the information.
I just,
So,
we
as far as the
want it
structure,
clear, it doesn't overlap, for example, very good example. It doesn't overlap with the planning commission. It doesn't overlap with the development.
Well, I think it
review
would
board.
though.
So just put it in writing clarification of what your role is compared to the planning commission.
right. Would there be some conflict with the planning commission?
Conflicts of interest. Again, guys, I'm not saying I'm not gonna do this, but I'm just trying to get the board established. There's other people that we bring on board to help us with that. And I'll bring them here.
It just, the board it's in writing, because when we pass the minutes, it isn't like John said, there's not here, yeah, we bless you. We actually have a written goal in the Senate, what this is. We
Would you
read
like
it,
this
we
committee
bless
to call
it.
the select boards, what your roles and responsibilities are? Is that what you'd like to see as far as making decisions? I'm just trying to kind of get some collaboration real quick, so I know what lane to go in, because this can go. I mean, you're asking me to present that. I'll do a 1 page, but I'm not gonna write a 15-page operating procedure.
No, we're not asking for that.
What does Springfield have?
They have a whole they have a dedicated economic development, kind of the same thing. And I can pull from those boards. My point I'm trying to make with this is I need your folks' input on how you want to see it, how you want the relationship. And as far as overlapping, that's the point. I think there is some overlap and it's great. As I spoke with this before. So.
Why not just join some of the groups that are already working on the things that you're talking about?
It's actually, ACCD is actually an established state and federal thing, and they're making a manual for towns to operate. So I know what you're saying, why not join the board, but having this committee, why not bring those other boards? Like, if you have a chair of one board, maybe they'd want to sit on this board. If you have a chair, that's how we do it at the Wyndham Regional. So for instance, you serve on committees, and then you would chair a board, and you go back to the executive board if there's topics from the other board, and you funnel it that way. So I'm happy to work on it, folks. I want to be honest, I just don't want to inherit this whole thing. This started as a general inquiry from the state, and I'm willing to work on it. I got a lot on my plate, you guys know.
Yes, you do.
I do, I really do. I mean, I'm willing to work on it, but you tell me what you want to see. If we can keep it to a one-page draft and work it from there, I'm willing to do that.
That's what we'd like to see.
Okay,
All right.
fair enough. Thank you.
And thank you for all that you're doing.
Thanks.
Thank you.
729 storm FEMA update.
I think we've beat that to the death tonight.
I think we have covered that very well. Thank you. Okay, new business, ARPA town clerk proposal. Getting to some business now. Digitization. Sorry, screwed that one up today 3 times. Digitization land records. Miss Cynthia Stoddard, who's the chair.
No, it's Pauline O'Brien will
Oh,
be
excuse me.
presenting to you.
Sorry.
The proposal is from me, from the ARPA committee recommendation that I addressed the select board for their approval on the plan to get our records in the cloud. I submitted my research and proposal to the select board, and we'll welcome any questions or comments or anything.
That wasn't in their packet. You sent it directly to them?
No, I gave it to you, Russ. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not to frustrate you, Paul, because I know you've worked hard on this. Can you go through it for us so we can hear?
Sure. I have it in front of me. I conducted months of research on what online systems are available, and referred to several town clerks. Rockingham uses CoFile, Putney uses COT system, Grafton uses COT system. Had verbal conversations with Putney and Grafton. And then when I was at the conference in September, I polled clerks from throughout the state and narrowed my findings down to 2 systems, which was COT and NEMRIC, and compared the 2 companies and the systems that and the cost analysis basically, and I'll email everyone tomorrow. The basic line for using COT system was to get established with COT system was $23,985 startup fees. COT would charge $202.50 per download. $1.50 would go to them, and $1 would go to Westminster. Is what we get right now is $1. per download. Nemrick startup fees were $13,419. And they do the same thing. They charge $2.50 per download online, and $1.50 goes to them and $1 goes to us. So it's a wash in that respect. My main concern was the customer service that I received from my research and months of working with these people. And in my memo, I rated my experience, and on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give COT system a 6, because I ended up doing all the work for them in an area that I really was not comfortable in, and had some really frustrating moments. I would rate Nemrick at 9, because I got great customer service, got my answers that I needed to move forward with this proposal, and brought it to the ARPA committee at our last meeting, and they recommended that I move forward to the select board level for approval to move forward. I'm requesting 20,000. I know the proposal to go with Nemrick is 13,419, but I'm requesting 20,000 just because I've never done this before. I don't know if there's any hidden costs. And I feel that that cushion would be helpful. I have to do the reporting structure to ARPA, which I'm comfortable. I've done a lot of grant reporting, so that's where I'm at. And
Thank you,
that's my
Paul.
request.
Thank you so much for that presentation. We, again, I'm sorry that we do not have it formally in front of us, but I think we have enough information based on what you said to render a decision. Is there anyone else from the ARPA committee that would like to speak in support of this proposal?
I will support.
What's the point of it?
So when we went into COVID, no one could have access to the town. So digitizing our records will allow the public to search those records. We will recover our fees, as Pauline's illustrated, but moving forward, that is always there. Towns are doing it. So, and actually, in part of this ARP money coming back, that is a direct correlation to spend this money, the digitization of public records. So,
There was a grant early on for it.
yeah, there's a separate grant. So
Separate grant.
what she's doing, yeah, this directly ties into where we're needing to spend the money, and it's a great idea.
Okay,
This has, from what I've met with you guys, this has pretty much limited risk for not being.
Yeah.
And it's sustainable. It after the initial cost, it's sustainable. So I know that's another criteria for ARPA.
And your recommendation is Nemrick and the additional 20 on top of their original bid number, the 20,000 for whatever else shows up in this process as we get through it.
Correct.
Anyone else from the ARPA board present that wants to chime in?
It just should be noted that the request is for 20. If it comes in and she figures 15.5, that the course will be what the ARPA funds will pay for.
Okay,
So
great.
saying 20 is a good, safe number for her to deal with it and find any hidden costs that there would be.
Thank
Any
you,
other
Russ.
any other comment on this?
We still maintain hard copies of all the records. Yes, it's not, from now on, everything's digitized, no more.
No, it'll be both physical and in the cloud.
That's a great idea.
yeah,
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. We will entertain a motion, excuse me.
We actually putting a line item in this? I'm a little confused over that.
No, this is ARPA money.
This is ARPA money.
Spending.
I-
Just
I-
approving this
Where are
spending.
we showing where we took the money out and where we took it back in? We're not on our committee, so I'm a little confused with what you're
You have
saying.
the final say.
Right.
Right.
Asking
So
us
this
to
is, this is the end process.
Asking the select board to take money out of the ARPA fund and put it towards this fee.
That's correct.
Okay, I'm just trying to say, you gotta take it.
You're gonna get a lot of these. These are gonna be, there's going to be multiple requests for
Yeah.
It's
funds.
not, it's never showing up here.
That's
No,
correct.
Because you
Okay,
have
I'm just trying
separate fund that has all that money.
And, but because it's not showing up here, you're asking us to take it tonight and move it. Move $20,000.
No,
Just-
no,
Just spend it.
Just spend it.
Spend
Just
it.
spend it.
I move that we support this program.
I'll say.
Vote.
Jason? I'm sorry.
So we moved and seconded by Jason. A motion has been made to authorize the distribution for the digitization of land records.
Good job.
I got it. That's okay. Land records under our ARPA allotment up to $20,000. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. Town meeting, date, location, and venue.
I know there was talk last year that you loved your spring outside meeting. Only God knows what COVID is going to do to us in March. I know if it was today, the school would have an issue with it,
They wouldn't be there.
but, right, exactly, so we need to declare it, but we also have to have a plan in place to resort if the schools do shut down completely and that we can't
They're not even allowing visitors for basketball games.
games in.
Only,
No, yeah.
Yeah.
only athlete home, anyway.
Yeah.
I talked to Cole yesterday, which I know Cynthia's been after us about this meeting space, so this is kind of wrapped into that too. About use of the fire department. And he said he had no problem with it, other than I do need to say, he did have to talk to the prudential committee, but didn't seem to think it would be an issue, so. If we provided cleaning to clean that facility once a month, whoever cleans this building, is kind of what I negotiated with him, just once a month, doorknobs, surfaces, that kind of thing. Same with town meeting. If we thought it was a big enough area in the Bay area, clean that right out completely. If it's a nice day in the spring, doors open. If it's not, they have air handlers that can move air in and out. It's an idea. He said he would be fine with it.
How many people do they say legally they can be in?
I didn't ask that. I don't know.
Well, normally, the meeting is in February. I
That's
mean,
true.
that's the
I was
first
thinking March.
question. Huh?
Yeah.
We can, well, that's what we're having a discussion, if either last week in February or the 1st of March, but we could move it out to the 1st of April or something like that. That's what we're discussing.
I don't think the school is an option, honestly.
It won't be.
Yeah.
by
I don't
then.
think nothing's gonna change there.
Yeah, but, it depends, if we think it was a good town meeting we had outdoors, that was fine, but it was in May,
It was warm.
Lucky to.
yeah.
And but that was getting, the problem with that meeting, we were against the deadline. In other words, if something didn't pass, we were already, the next meeting would have been into the next year.
Right.
We were against the calendar wall, but if we did it in, I don't know, middle of April or something, it might be not that bad, right?
Probably. John, you have something to add?
Yeah, I kind of, Mr. Perry spoke to the trigger point, which was the schools kind of restricted where we go for sports, my kids have sports. One thing I think, and we talked about at ARP, was for you folks to think about, what are we gonna do if we have to shut down? What if this goes south? Because there are towns that are shutting down their operation. So if this next round of COVID puts us in a disadvantage, and I'm just throwing it out
I'm
there.
just gonna give you my opinion. If
Yep.
we allow people, if we allow to be shut down again, we're the dumbest people on the planet.
Yeah,
But we do need to have a plan. I don't disagree with you there. I talked to him on my own accord, that it's a big building, it's
Yeah.
handicap accessible. You know,
If we schedule early enough and then we get closer and we have to change the schedule like we did last time, and we can do that. But if we sit here and wait and schedule it too late, then
Oh, no.
then it's gonna.
I
Agreed.
agree with Ms. Perry, I agree with that.
Great.
That's a good plan, yeah.
So how we feel about approaching the Prudential Committee and Cole and the fire department for what Craig is suggesting early April for that?
Town meeting.
Yes. Russ?
not
Yeah.
gonna be good
Yeah, I-
enough for the, yeah,
same, if it's a nice day, doors are open
Yeah,
and you can
that's
be
true.
inside. If it's not, you bring them down halfway and use their air handlers and,
Try to keep it as warm as possible.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know any other options.
What makes it tough on me when you guys do that is, so I negotiate to buy road sand. Okay, to haul it in April, when the roads are muddy, I haul it in April, because I know I can pay for it. Because the budget's already been approved. If you put it back till April, I can't do that, I've gotta wait to see. Then a couple of years ago, our budget got interrupted and we had to wait another month. And I do the same thing with guardrails. They come and put guardrails in before I've actually got the money to pay for it. But a negotiated deal, they put them in, they hold the bill, I pay them the new fiscal year, but I know I can pay the bill because my budget's finished. I won't be able to do that. That's all. That's what happens. And it just kind of,
But I don't think we got a lot of choices. I mean, we ain't gonna hold a meeting in March. I can tell you that. It's just too cold,
well, if you had it inside the firehouse with it heated, you could, in those
But-
bays.
I don't know. I just don't think we're gonna do it in March. It's just too cold, But you got plenty of money, Chuck. You
Okay,
got plenty of money.
okay.
You're fine.
I think the problem isn't that also the heat as much as the noise, if you, when the heaters are going, I can't remember what the noise in the fire.
Well, the whole argument is how far you gotta sit apart. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Mathematically, you gotta sit and figure out if everybody's 6 feet apart, how many people can fit in that building? I
Right.
don't know. And,
mhm.
on it, I still not a bad choice. I mean, we don't have a lot of choices.
We
We're
don't
not-
have a lot
we-
of choices.
We can say 6 feet, 10 feet. It's all hypothetical. We're not 6 feet now. So
Gonna say, no different. than
it's no
swimming
different
with
than right
4
now.
people
If you want to
watching.
wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't, you don't.
You
You
take
bring
the
your own
footprint-
chair, sit over in the corner. or
Look
sit
at the
by door or
footprint you had last year of your
Pretty
town
small,
meeting
really.
inside that roped in area. Take that footprint and put it inside the firehouse.
I
You've got the same amount of area.
No, not, well, we're not disagreeing on that. It was just the fact that once you close the door, yeah, whatever, but that's going back to my point. And in late April, now you got a better chance of it being temperature that ain't too bad,
You can have the doors open
Yeah.
and people go outside.
I just know once we get into May, like last time, we're now up against the
Mhm.
clock.
Sure.
So we always, I don't know, I guess Russ, if we can come back the next meeting with a couple dates in April.
yeah, let's
And
think
then
about it.
check with the fire department, make sure that those, and I guess the other part of the question while we're here in discussion, we've had for years Monday night. And then we gave up and tried Saturday morning, which didn't make much of a difference either. We have less people every year. Do we still, being that it will be in a firehouse, I assume we're gonna stay with a Saturday? And we're not gonna go to a Monday night,
Definitely stay with the Saturday.
okay?
Most people would have the opportunity, because again, I mean, we have to always look at the fact that it is a town of 3,000 people. I know 3,000 people are not going to show, but that is our obligation for the fact that that's never going to happen. Look, I mean, over the last 10 years, I think Ally did an average for me. And I think it was somewhere around 170 to 205. So I think it works. I think it works.
Normally, when there's too many people showed up, because the select board did something really wrong.
There was
They won't
one,
get them out.
in-
So it's never a good sign.
In the last 10 years, there was one 425
It was the
person.
gravel pit.
That was
okay?
it. That was the
Gravel
one.
pit.
All right, that was the one.
We don't discuss gravel pits, we're gonna be fine, we'll have enough.
Okay.
You could say they were gravel pits, maybe get a big turnout.
Okay. So we will go to Cole and the Prudential Committee for the next meeting and see where we're at. My apologies, but I'd like to ask for a motion to move to executive session. Tonight we'll be talking about the town report dedication.
I'll move so.
Okay, I have so moved, second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor to go in executive session to discuss the town report dedication for this year, say aye.
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 And that will
Opposed?
be after date of the next meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
We got a date of next meeting, I guess, is what, if needed. You really didn't think we were gonna have another meeting?
The 15th is not the date, Craig. It's
Anything on the manager's
22nd.
report?
I do not have anything tonight.
Anything on boards and commissions?
I have nothing to report there.
Other business?
No, I wanted to circle back. I want to clarify something real quick.
Go ahead.
Meeting. It wasn't talking about the venue. It was talking about having electronic means that are friendly. So if we have a big gathering or people don't want to come to the firehouse, they can
Oh.
hear. That's what I was, and I wanted to clarify that because right now, this is what we had this Al and everybody's concurring that there's a lot of background noise and stuff, and we don't have monitors to see people. So
Yeah,
I'm saying, folks, think about if you have a need, you can tell us, we'll bring across, to the next meeting.
I think that's a great idea. with the
So
big-
that's what I,
Big
that's,
screen with.
that's what I
actually see who-
was, that's what I was trying to talk about.
See if he's got one.
Yeah, so, just so we can offer that.
Yeah, no,
service, because in
that's
the
a help.
hybrid meeting laws, it talks about that, we just have
Yeah.
to do our best.
Good point.
So that's where I was,
Any other business?
Yes, first, amateur look at, separating the highway, budget. Darlene, I would look to have you look at it. All I did was just literally pull out his items off.
So then you're gonna pull it out of this budget that you presented tonight.
We didn't do that tonight. The budget will be the budget. If they decide to separate it, then you and I will have to work on that.
Yeah, there's some things I would move around, but.
Okay, so
It looks good, and you're gonna go back and we'll discuss the two other lines.
So-
That's correct.
that's fine. So we can discuss this at the next meeting, which is very important. Date of the next meeting?
Way past. the time.
So we talked about having another meeting because you've still got to adopt this budget next week, Wednesday, the 15th.
I can make it.
Yeah.
Does that work for everybody?
I might not be able to make it.
Instead of making it the 22nd, which is,
No, I'd rather do the 15th.
15th as well.
I might not be able to make it.
Okay,
Next week,
next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, sorry.
Wednesday, yeah, I might not.
Okay. Okay. Would you rather some other day?
Well, I could do it another day, but I can't do it. I might not be able to do it that day, but maybe I could do it. I'll see,
All right, I'm just gonna write Toby questionable and.
yeah. And it's okay. I mean, I think I know how everybody's gonna vote on it.
Right.
so-
and we have 4 at least, but we'd like to have 5. Okay, so 4 certain, 5 possible.
Yeah.
So we're set for the next meeting, December 15th, 2021. Okay,
Good job.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
thank you, everyone.
Somebody capable of shutting this down? I need to go get my folder.
Just shut it.
Hey, darling,
Yeah.
can I get your John Hancock? I'm running for one more term.
We stand around, look, in case you-
Yeah.
you.